Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2024, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ ORION NWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got NFL 2024 free agent signings, releases, trades, all of the above. It was a very, very busy day today, and we got a lot to be able to go over. So I'll wait for people to kind of get settled in. We'll get some background music to get started. Ended up doing the thumb, and it turned out pretty good. We got a nice tropical background. We got dollar bills, y'all, for the guys that are getting paid. And then two of the most exciting signings that are new. Saquon Barkley to the Philadelphia Eagles, staying in the division, going to the rival. Tiki Barber not happy, says, "You're dead to me." Saquon says, "You've always been dead to me." And then Kirk Cousins, the gunslinger. I know a lot of people want to complain. They think it's a lot of money, 40 years, $180 million. But Kirk Cousins, even coming off an ACL, PCL, MCL, anything with the L at the end of it, is still going to end up being better than Justin Fields or Russell Wilson in Atlanta. So I actually like the deal. You know, some of these guys are going to be going for the bag, and some of them are going to be going for team fit as well as the bag. And I feel that this thumbnail turned out pretty damn well. But let me get some music queued up for just the background. And then we'll go over some of the stats. We'll do a reaction, and then we'll do a little bit of a breakdown based on what I think and the rest of the folks think here on the channel. Daniel in the building. What's good, buddy? What's good? Rizzo in the building. What's good? And I know, some Eagles fans are going to be very, very ecstatic. Even though you lost DeAndre Swift, you get, quote unquote, an upgrade if Saquon can step out healthy. But remember, Jason Kelce retired. So again, remember, going from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best. But again, with all the additions and subtractions, the Eagle offensive line, even with Kelce gone, is still going to be better than the Giants, but it's not going to be as dominant, with Kelce in the lineup, and then obviously with Kelce retired. So they're going to have to look for someone like Jackson Powers-Johnson. Now it's starting to kind of make sense that I don't know if the Eagles will draft a guy like that, but can you imagine if Jackson Powers-Johnson from the Ducks, the best center in college football, ended up going to Philadelphia and then ended up, kind of shoring up that center position? They're going to end up getting somebody at some point within the first 4 rounds, you would think, unless there's a free agent center that they feel that's good enough for Philadelphia, or if they have someone that's currently on the roster that can either, play center or maybe played right guard or left guard and can switch over. But again, it's going to be an upgrade for Saquon going to that type of team. But again, the offensive line still has some question marks without Kelce, and there may be another additional starter on that line that may be upgraded, replaced. So we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on, not only free agency, but we're also looking at the draft. And then obviously if there's any other players that may be able to fill that line, because filling the shoes of Kelce is going to be very, very tough. But if I could think of one guy that could do it right away, it's Jackson Powers-Johnson. But I don't know if Philadelphia is looking at that position as strong of a need as me, but we will have to wait and see. And on the right, we got my guy, Kirko Chains. All right, Kirk Cousins. And the two best fits for Kirk Cousins were either going to be staying in Minnesota, right, or going where his wife grew up or has very good ties in the ATL. So if you're looking at, you got Jay Jetta, right? You got Jordan Addison, you got TJ Hawkinson, but we already know the offensive line really isn't that good in Minnesota. So if they go Michael Penix Jr., right, again, they're going to have to figure out how to get the right line there. But it's, based off the moves that we've seen so far, Michael Penix Jr. to the Vikings that we said about 3, 4, 5 months ago actually might become a reality. And same thing with Bo Nix to Denver. It's kind of leaning towards, if it ends up playing out that way, I think both franchises would be very happy. And again, if you can't have Kirk, what's the second best thing to Kirk? Getting a rookie. And as long as it's, not someone like J.J. McCarthy, you end up getting like a J.J. McCarthy type of player in Minnesota, I think a lot of them would be pissed off. But if you get Michael Penix Jr. or like a Jaden Daniels, I think that they would be excited. I mean, you only can get so much quality, based off your draft position. And I think Cousins is going to be a great, addition for the Atlanta Falcons. Pitts tweeted who's going to keep number 8. And obviously Kirk should keep number 8. Kyle Pitts should just go back to his college number 84, depending on Cordarrelle Patterson and some of the other guys on the team. But again, Kyle Pitts' stats should go up. Drake London's stats will go up. Bijan's numbers are going to go up. Every literal piece on the Atlanta Falcons is going to go up, up, up with Kirk. He's better than Desmond Ridder. He's better than Heineke for Meineke. It actually gives the Falcons a chance with 2 good offensive linemen and a lot of good skill position players. Now, the defense still has a lot of question marks for Kirk O'Chains. All right, they're still going to have some question marks there. But if you got Baker Mayfield on my Buccaneers, you got Carr on the Saints, you got Cousins on the Falcons, and you got Bryce Young, obviously, sitting there, with the Carolina Panthers. It looks like it will be a 3-team race between the Falcons, Saints, and Bucks. And if that ends up being the case, right, with the Minnesota Vikings transition to the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, is it that crazy to think that Kirk Cousins can't get 9, 10, 11 wins with the Atlanta Falcons? And that may be all you need to be able to get to a point to make it happen. So I actually like the move for Kirk Cousins. 4 years, $180 million. And some people are going to be haters and say, well, the guy's win-loss record is not very good. He only has a couple games above the win to loss, total, right? But again, if you actually look at his touchdown to interception ratio, last time I checked, it's a team game. When's the last time Kirk Cousins had a good owner? When's the last time Kirk Cousins had a good GM? When's the last time Kirk Cousins actually had good coaches? When's the last time Kirk Cousins had a good OC and a DC? When's the last time Kirk Cousins actually had a good offensive line, whether we're talking in Washington or with Minnesota? Kirk Cousins never really has had all the pieces to be successful. Yeah, he had Jay Jetta, and obviously you have the recent additions of Addison and Hawkinson, but obviously he ended up getting hurt. And he had just a couple seasons ago, 12, 13 wins. But again, you're not going to be able to have a show out season when you're going against the Packers and the Lions every single year. And they finally needed to fire their coach, bring in a new one from the Rams, and then they got it kind of turned around. But still, the running back situation was a mess. Obviously, getting rid of Dalvin Cook. Madison isn't a starter. Now they're both not there. Offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL. And the defense, to me, is very shaky. At times, they look like, once in a while, a top 10 or top 12 defense. But for a lot of the games, they look like a bottom 10 defense, even though there may be a few players there that make plays from time to time. So now going to Atlanta, you got a better offensive line. You got skill position players that are kind of similar to what you were working at with Minnesota. You just have guys that need you to get the most out of them. You need to be able to have, Cousins there to hand it off to Bijan, right? Drake London getting nice sharp slants from Kirk Cousins instead of Desmond Ridder, right? Or, Heineke for Meineke. And then the biggest one that's going to benefit from all of this is Kyle Pitts, a guy that got drafted in the top 10. Anytime you draft a tight end, top 5 or top 10, that doesn't get the ball, this will be a guy that will get the tight end position the ball. And then the defense for Atlanta still has a long ways to go. And obviously the Bucks and Saints still have to be the front runners. But with Kirk Cousins, you should be able to compete now. And now you got 3 quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins, Carr, and Baker, where all of them should be close to about 10 wins. Does any team in the NFC South get to 12 or 13 or 14? Probably not. Realistically, it's probably going to be 9, 10, 11 wins, and maybe 12 and 5 at the very best. And if that happens, more than likely there's some injuries on the Saints or the Bucks or the Falcons for one team to kind of, take a couple spots ahead of the next team. So one team might end up getting, 10 or 11, and then you're going to have a couple teams close to 9 or 10, and then you're going to have that bottom team probably sitting at, 3 to 6 wins, which will be the Carolina Panthers. So I don't know about y'all, 4 years, $180 million. But again, you have to understand, with leverage and how things work. Look how good the Minnesota Vikings were, with Kirk Cousins on the field. As soon as Kirk went off the field, it was a fucking disaster. We had the Pasternaut and we had all these other guys go in there for a few games, and for a few games looking pretty good, but not the consistency of Kirk Cousins. And if you go back and look a few years ago where all the haters were saying, he can't win in prime time. I get it. Monday Night Football is not kind to Kirk Cousins. Thursday Night Football, not kind. Sunday Night Football, not kind. But he hasn't really had the full team aspect to be successful. And still at this point, you don't really have everything. I still think that, the Falcons need a better GM, a better head coach, a better play caller. They need more. But at least this gives a chance for Kirk to be able to kind of reinvent himself. And then it also gives a chance for Minnesota to go young and hopefully get Michael Penix Jr. And then they can have that Penix Jr. to Jay Jetta. That's going to get guys out of the seats. And now the Atlanta Falcons are actually worth watching with Kirk Cousins there, because you want to see Kirk Cousins going 50 yards to Drake London. You want to see 20 yards across the middle to Kyle Pitts. You want to see a Bijan handoff or screen pass going 60 for a touchdown. We didn't really get to see the full complement of the players. And again, Kirk isn't going to solve all the problems. Again, you still need to beef up the O-line, even though they got two good ones, right? They still need to beef up the line and the defense and the coaching. But 4 years, $180 million. If you go back and look at who was ranked 10th, 11th, and 12th at quarterback just a few years ago, Kirk Cousins, right? Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill. And now as you're looking about 3, 4, 5 years, fast forward, Tannehill is done, right? Carr doesn't look like he's anywhere near being number 10, 11, or 12. Carr kind of feels like he's somewhere between 15 and 22. The only one that you can say that's still as consistently hovering around the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th spot is Kirk Cousins. A lot of times you say, well, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. Well, no shit. Same thing with Baker Mayfield. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. And all those guys are going to be grouped together around 10, 11, or 12. So for all the people that are hating on the money, hating on Kirk, he's one of the most likable guys. And remember, he wasn't RG3. He wasn't one of these guys that was selected to be the franchise guy. Washington picked RG3 and Kirk, at the same time. So Kirk was never, the favored guy. It just so happens that his longevity and obviously not playing a gimmick RPO style led him to this point. So he is one of those underdogs that ended up cashing in. He's got a great agent. Most of his deals are guaranteed money. And I like it. Like I said, you're not going to be able to get guaranteed money on all his contracts. His rookie year deal, no guaranteed contract. And then about 3, 4, 5 fully guaranteed contracts. Good for him, at the quarterback position. And then you get this deal, 4 years, $180 million. And then you're obviously getting, I believe, 100 to 150 million guaranteed. I have to go back and look at the notes to see the exact number. But it wasn't a fully guaranteed, but still 4 years, 180 million. And then if you're getting 100 to 150 million guaranteed out of that money, that's pretty damn good. And again, Falcons fans, I know some of the, brothers and some of the people will reach out and they were like, Justin Fields would have been such a better fit, with him, his swag, his style, and then him linking up with the other, star position players. I get that. Justin Fields would have looked nice, in an Atlanta Falcon uniform. But if Kirk Cousins is healthy, right, and Justin Fields is healthy, you can't look me in the eyes and say that Justin Fields is better, because he's not. Justin Fields, he's got potential, but if you go back and look at that draft with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and you're looking at Zach Wilson, it went from one of the drafts that had a lot of potential to arguably one of the worst drafts at quarterback in the last 15 years. But when they got drafted, everyone was clamoring, saying, oh my God, maybe 4 out of these 5 guys are going to be franchise guys. And if you remember me, you want to go back and check the tape. I told y'all, I thought it was only going to be 1 or 2 guys. And the guys that had the most success in college, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, I felt that those were the 2 that had the best shot to make it happen. But again, it's all about necessarily the team that you go to, right? The GM, the head coach, the OC, the DC of your offense or defense, supporting cast. So not every single player that's going to come in out of college is going to make everyone around them better. But 4 years, $180 million. Hey, there's not just one guy with 2 hands in the air. It's his wife and his kids. And now it gives us a reason to still focus on the Minnesota Vikings if they get McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. But at least now the Atlanta Falcons will be more must-see TV than they were, unless you're an NFC South head like myself. Big facts. Let's go, baby. Let me go down to the comments here real quick, and then we'll go down to any comments that you guys have, and then we'll go down the list. I got a big list. I was going to stream last night, but I ended up doing I watched NASCAR, obviously with the race there in Phoenix with Paisley Pup, and then I figured, the Baker Mayfield news, the Russell Wilson news. So we'll get into all that with the few signings from last night, and then obviously the big ones from today, and then we can kind of go from there. So But I hope you guys appreciate the thumb. I think it turned out pretty well. And let's keep going down the list. Daniel in the building, what's good? Rizzo in the building. He's an Eagle fan. He likes the Saquon move. But again, we'll see. So now Jackson Powers-Johnson or some type of center is going to be needed. Will Saquon be better than Swift? More than likely, if he can stay healthy. But it is a big what if. He is going to look good in that Philadelphia uniform. Giants fans hate Saquon. Well, it is what it is. You're only going to be as good as the people that are around you. And again, they didn't really give him a whole lot to work with. And for the most part, Saquon has showed out when he's healthy, from Penn State to New York and then now going to Philadelphia. Seems like a lot of these NFC East teams like going to the rivals. It seems like it happens more in that division than any other division in football. But again, is it the best fit for Saquon? I could have seen Saquon maybe on the Chargers. There's a few other places, maybe the Texans. But again, sometimes you go for the bag, maybe not the best fit. Big facts. NC Jolly in the building. He said Charlotte in shambles right now. Well, you already knew Spider Burns was going to want 25 to 30 million a year. So for him to get moved doesn't really surprise me. Maybe it surprised a little bit of you and your friends and the fan base there. But it's going to take a while, for the Panthers to keep, catch up, to the Falcons, Bucks, and Saints. That's just the reality. And again, it shows you how important the GM and the head coach are, to be able to build an organization when they're typically in fourth, to be able to get them to be relevant, just like Dougie P and the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you want to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, you got to be able to look to see how they are rebuilding their squad to give you an idea where you need to go. Not good enough to play the position. You might think so. Some Eagles fans might think so. He ain't good enough to play the position. It'd be much better to be able to get someone, if you could get the best center in college football and that guy turns into Pro Bowl All-Pro within the first year and he ends up being a Hall of Fame guy, you want Juergens over that? You know what I mean? So for me, I'm not sure where they're going to go, but definitely drafting a center within the first 4 rounds, that could be the difference between the Eagles, actually being successful and getting back to where they were before they went 10-1 and then fell off the face of the earth and then the Bucks beat the shit out of them in the playoffs. Having Juergens fucking there is not good enough for Philadelphia, not whatsoever. Yeah, I think a lot of people were looking at Mike Evans and Pittman. Higgins is still out there, and Higgins, doesn't, he's not too happy. He wasn't getting the money. So, Higgins is still available, but again, where does T want to go play? We're going to have to go from there. Yeah, and there you go. And that's exactly what you said right there. He said, got to pray for Higgins. Yeah, but to me, I think it's worth it. You know what I mean? Because you got to look at all these other quarterbacks and the franchise tag going up. Yes, I know it's crazy to pay a guy 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 million a year, but that's kind of where we're at right now. And remember, Kirk Cousins, when he was on Minnesota, you felt like they could get to 10 wins almost every single year, or if they didn't, close. Without him in the lineup, you saw how shitty they were, but also Kirk can get the ball out quickly. The other quarterbacks like the, Spacetronaut and all the other guys that they tried out for Minnesota, you saw how terrible they really were. They had moments for maybe a couple weeks, but there was nobody that's on that roster that was going to be able to take Minnesota to the playoffs and compete with Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, and now the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff and the Goffense. So I know it's going to be tough losing Kirk, but if you get Michael Penix Jr. and start drafting O-line, Minnesota, it'll take them a couple years, but once a couple years happens, and if they really truly care about the offensive line, Jetta, Addison, Hawkinson, Michael Penix Jr., and a good offensive line, that could end up getting you 10 or 11 wins, in a couple years of building, and then you can compete, and then you'll have 3 solid teams, in the NFC North with the Vikings if we draft Penix Jr., right? And then they have Jordan Love with the Packers already towards the top, and then Jared Goff and the Goffense. I'm going to keep scrolling down. Finley in the building. What's good? Well, he said, I bet you're upset, and especially when they, passed on the 2 first-rounders and the second-rounders, with the Rams a couple years ago, but they just wanted him still on the team because he was the biggest superstar and biggest name besides Bryce Young, right? And then now, you're not getting as much in return, but again, you got more play with the player instead of having the player away from your team a couple years ago, and you know how that works, coulda, woulda, shoulda, But again, a lot of times it's going to be about the money and not loyalty. A lot of times the loyalty is only going to be seen once in a while, like maybe Mike Evans to the Buccaneers, but most of these guys are going to try to get their bag, and it may not necessarily be the right fit for them, but if they're going to get the most money, some guys are going to obviously walk away and take the money. Daredevil in the building. He said, let Russ cook. Well, 1 year rental, right? So he can give you about the same kind of production, that you're going to be getting out of Kenny Pickett and obviously Mitchell Trubisky or any of these guys, Mason Rudolph, that you guys have had at quarterback. Now, could Russ potentially get you 1 or 2 more wins than Kenny Pickett? Yeah, but he's not good enough to be the quarterback for the next 5 or 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to try him out for 1 year to make sure that Mike Tomlin can go to the playoffs for 1 more year, you can try. But again, with the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, and then with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, even getting Russell Wilson for a year, you could still end up finishing in 3rd or 4th place, even with maybe 9 or 10 wins, because we already know that division is going to be pretty tough. I don't know what your feelings of it are. The only thing that I can see from it, Daredevil, is the offensive line is terrible. You know that, right? You got 2 good running backs, but they could be a hell of a lot better, with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren if you had a good line. And Pat Freiermuth will benefit from Russell Wilson. And the main guy that might be able to showcase his skill set, right, is George Pickens. So if Russ thinks that George Pickens is the Courtland Sutton from the Broncos, that same type of guy, then we're going to see a big uptick in George Pickens' numbers. And if it's not George Pickens, it's either going to be another wide receiver or Pat Freiermuth. Someone's going to benefit, from Russell Wilson being at quarterback, on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But again, it's a 1 year rental, and I don't think Pittsburgh fans are that thrilled about it. Is it going to be better than Kenny Pickett? If you're trying to be positive, yes, it will be. But again, what are the numbers going to look like? And even if you end up getting 26-8, that still might end up getting you 4th place or 3rd place in the division, just because of how talented the division is, unless there's injuries on the Bengals or the Browns, and then we have to see what the Ravens are going to do. So not sure how you feel about it, but it's going to be for 1 year, and then we'll see how it goes from there for the Pittsburgh Steeler fans. So obviously nothing to jump up and down for. I'm not sure if Steeler fans wanted Justin Fields more, because I feel Justin Fields is more likable, right? But as far as stats wise, right, Russ will get more stats than Justin Fields. If the offensive line was better, then I could say, ooh, maybe Fields could run. But if you got one of the worst offensive lines in the league, just like Minnesota, where there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen, then you're probably going to want to go with the pocket quarterback that can actually get the ball to their receivers. But again, there's also receivers that were pissed that didn't get the ball, a.k.a. Jerry Jeudy, and no longer part of the Denver Broncos either. All right, I'm still going to scroll down, and then we'll get to the next player. But we got a lot of players to go over. So Matt in the building. What's good? Shout out to all the people watching on Twitter/X. What's good? Anthony Ramirez, Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. There you go. Wilkins. And again, the quarterback signings and being able, to go Gardner Minshew, and you're going from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback, and it still feels like you had Aiden, and now you're going Gardner Minshew. But still, the Raiders, they deserve to be able to have someone that they can be proud of, whether it be like a Bo Nix in Denver, Michael Penix Jr., going to possibly, the Minnesota Vikings. Raiders, at some point, they need to be able to get a quarterback like they had in Carr in the near future. But for at least the time being, you got Gardner Minshew, you got Christian Wilkins. And, when you're normally a last place team, as you know, it takes a lot to be able to move up. But as far as seeing some other good players leave the division, leave the Chiefs, leave the Broncos, leave the Chargers, that's going to give you a little bit of hope, that maybe we can get to 10 wins. Maybe you can get a wild card spot in the next 3 years. But the division is going to be very, very tough. But at least you end up getting a solid piece in Wilkins and then Gardner Minshew, especially if someone gets hurt, like Aiden O'Connell. Then you bring in, the backup, and you're still going to be around the same position. So. Yes, I agree. Finally, a little bit of help from Max Crosby. I don't think Max Crosby necessarily needs help. He can get sack lunches on his own. But as far as the Raider fan base getting excited to be able to cheer for another player, definitely. Raiders in the building. What's good? Yeah, I like that one too. You know, you have to look at the money, and some guys aren't really the biggest names and whatnot, but I got a big list that we can go over here. So, Calvin in the building. Yeah, well, I don't know what the Saints are doing, bro. It's like you guys are over the cap and you're giving like Honey Badger money that you shouldn't be giving. That guy shouldn't even be on your team anymore. And I'm not saying Honey Badger is done, but there's definitely weird decisions that are being made in Nolans. And now you're starting to see like the Falcons and Buccaneers. And even though the Bucs have been kind of at the top spot, maybe the Falcons are getting a little bit closer to the Saints level. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the draft and free agency. So midnight in the building. What's good? Let's get to 100 in donos. Let's do it. Nice to see you in the building, Calvin. Let me know what's on your mind, Calvin. Let me know. I know there's going to be people pissed off and whatnot. So, I mean, if you got something to say about the Saints and the fan base and the ownership, let them know. Let them know. Obviously, I trust your opinion on the Saints more than most people because, you actually have a brain and you can, not be biased and you can kind of see it for what it is. Of course, you're a Saints fan and I'm a Bucs fan and we're still going to have that rivalry, but we can kind of keep it real and not have that bias. If a good player is good, no matter what team they're on, we can admit it, But again, some of the decisions that have been made from the Nylon Saints front office have been definitely a head scratcher in the last couple years. Daredevil. I think it's an upgrade over Kenny, which it is. Yeah. Tomlin, yes, right. I agree. You know what I mean? But again, the offensive line is terrible. Like Minnesota and Pittsburgh's offensive line scare me. So it's like when you have like a lot of these talented players and you wonder why you can't win fucking games, it's because the offense and D-line, O-line and D-line need a lot of fucking work, And obviously with the D-line, you got, TJ Watt, and you got Minka, and, you got the defensive side of the Steelers is going to be better than Minnesota's. But as far as offensive line is concerned, both need definitely like a whole rebuild. They need a glow up, and a glow up sometimes turns into a blow up. So we'll see on how it goes. But again, it's going to be an upgrade over Kenny Pickett. But again, is it going to be enough to be able to beat the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns in the division? Probably not. We'll have to see. And again, he could still end up putting up 26-8, 30-10, and it still might not be enough, to get a wild card in that division. But again, it should be more exciting football with Russell Wilson, even though he might not be liked as the human, but as far as the player on the field, he's going to give you better stats than Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, or anybody else that's, lined up at quarterback for the Steelers in the last few years besides Big Ben. So big facts. No, you guys don't need fucking Zach Wilson or Mac Jones or Kenny Pickett. You guys will just draft Bo Nix. The Vikings will draft Michael Penix Jr., and then we'll be good to go. Right. But again, Kenny Pickett, obviously with a lot of these rookies that were coming in, right, if the offensive line was better, don't you think Kenny Pickett's numbers and Mason Rudolph and anyone that they had back there, Mitchell Trubisky, everyone's numbers would be better. Najee's numbers would be better. Jaylen Warren's numbers would be better. Pat Freiermuth's numbers would be better. Hell, someone could actually throw the goddamn ball to George Pickens. George Pickens would end up being a superstar receiver in this league if you actually got him the ball. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 receiver, but I think that if George Pickens got the ball as much as some of the superstars in the NFL, like if he was a guy that got 10 to 12 targets every game, is it that crazy to think that George Pickens couldn't be a top 10 quarterback wide receiver combo in this league? And is it that crazy to think if George Pickens got 10 to 12 targets a game that he couldn't be a top 10 or top 12 receiver in the entire NFL? He could. We already know he's got amazing hands and one-on-one balls. He's undefeated. He's like OBJ. It's almost impossible to catch a ball over him. But again, it's a guy that's immature. He gets frustrated. He doesn't get the ball. He's young, right? So he needs to learn. But hopefully, for your sake, Daredevil, and obviously with the Steelers, and obviously with all the Steelers nation and all the Steeler fans, with the Steel Curtain, right? That if they can get him the ball, that'll actually equate to a couple more wins throughout the season if you can get him the rock. So, big facts. All right, no problem. Center and right tackle. Yep. And again, there's many teams that need offensive line, and you can have a lot of good skill position players, but if you don't have offensive line, it's like having a bunch of Ferraris and Lambos in the driveway, but you're not fucking going anywhere. They look great. They're sexy. They got the wheels. They got the rims. They got the spoiler. They can go 200 miles an hour in 3 seconds. But if you got no gas, you ain't going nowhere. And I think a lot of times we get enamored with the skill position players, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a good offensive line and a good head coach, it doesn't mean anything. Those players are only going to be able to give you what the offensive line brings the team. And that is big facts. Yep, I know. And again, like having Carr, and even though you knew that maybe the Raiders were going to be like a second, third, or fourth place team in the division, at least it gave you hope that you could, get 10 wins in the season and try to get a wild card and go 10-7. You had Carr, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Renfro. You got many pieces. But again, now having to start over, it's kind of like a gut punch, a reality check. And you're like, oh, we'll find someone better than Carr. We'll get someone as good or close to Carr. And you're still kind of looking for that Carr because it shows you how hard it is to be able to find a quarterback, even if it's ranked 10th, 11th, 12th. For all those haters that wanted to talk shit about Cousins and Carr, I know a lot of y'all are kind of wondering, damn, if this rookie class wasn't so good, fuck, I would take Carr. I would take Cousins. You know what I mean? But it has to be under the right situation. And with the Saints, obviously, we got our boy Calvin in the building. I don't think that Carr is a good fit in Nolans. And again, he started to get hot at the end of the year, but it doesn't seem like a natural fit. Again, he'll try to do his best, but if I had a choice between Cousins or Carr, I'm going Cousins all day. Saints at best right now, third best team in the division, oldest roster in the NFL. Stupid asses ain't doing nothing to get younger. I agree. Yep, I agree. And then what do you think about the Honey Badger deal? It's just crazy. And again, I got no bias, so I have no type of agenda. I call it how I see it. So I feel that a lot of us are going to be able to mostly agree. And I know not everyone will agree with every single thing or every single take that I have. But again, I feel that I have a little bit more compassion and I read a little bit more, watch more film. So when I end up coming up with a prediction or a statement, I feel a lot of times it has a really good backbone to my statement because I actually do, care about this job. And I want to have at least one person out there that's going to call it how most fans see it and not have an agenda like the Dallas Cowboys are going to go to the Super Bowl every single year. That gets old, and it gets old very, very quick. So it all starts in the trenches. So it's like, yeah, you got Russell Wilson, you got Jalen Warren, and you got Najee, and you got, possibly, we'll have to monitor Deontay Johnson and Freiermuth and Pickens and, what guys are going to be staying and what guys are going to be going. But still, if the offensive line isn't good, you can't expect to be able to win in that black and blue division with the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns. So we'll see where it goes. But good luck with Russ for the 1 year. And I'm being honest and genuine about that. And then if it doesn't work out like it hasn't worked out with every other team, it'll be something that you already saw coming. And then hopefully you guys can draft a quarterback the following year or get your free agent quarterback that's better than Russell Wilson for like a 4 or 5 year deal. Tomlin will never finish last in the division. AFC North is stacked, though. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on injuries, right? So obviously, with the Bengals and the Browns, it's like they're pretty injury prone, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you could also say the same thing for the Baltimore Ravens. So just because you won the division 1 year doesn't mean you're going to win it the next. And even if you don't get last, you might be able to find your way to crawl to third place. So yeah, we'll have to kind of monitor and wait and see, but good luck moving forward. Well, for that, it was money, because Aaron Jones wanted more money and they didn't want to pay 2 running backs double figures. Why would you pay $10 million per year for both guys? And you already got another guy sitting back there too with the backup, right? So there would be no point of having 3 running backs, when you got a fullback / halfback sitting there waiting in the wings. Then you got Aaron Jones as a starter. So again, Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs are essentially the same type of player. They're top 10 players when healthy. But again, it's the loyalty of the Packer following, wanting to keep what they had and not bringing in something new. But in reality, if both guys stay healthy, they both can be top 7 running backs in this league. The big question mark, right, is can Aaron Jones stay healthy for the full year? And also, can Josh Jacobs stay healthy for the full year? So we've only really gotten to one player so far, but we can go into, many, many big ones. But Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 million. It's a lot of money, but again, at least it makes the Falcons watchable, and I think it's a better move than Justin Fields. So we'll have to figure out, the market for Justin Fields at this point. But again, I know some of the Falcons fans are going to be upset, but you're going to win more games year in and year out with Kirk, unless he has a season-ending injury, than you are with Justin Fields. The only thing that Justin Fields gives you that's better than Kirk Cousins is running around and scrambling. But the way that the NFC South and the NFC plays, that scrambling is only going to get you so far. Just watch a Chicago Bear game, and you'll know. There'll be some games where Fields can get a touchdown pass and he can score with his legs, but there's a lot of mistakes that end up happening with Justin Fields. So remember, there's a little bit of upside, with him to catch up, to be like Trevor Lawrence in the draft. But again, Justin Fields could go to the San Francisco 49ers and still put up worse numbers than Brock Purdy. So you're going to be able to be somewhat successful if you go to a spot like San Fran. Mac Jones can be more successful there than anywhere else. Justin Fields can be more successful there than anywhere else. But again, does San Francisco want to deal with those kind of quarterbacks? They already got themselves a Brock Purdy, so it is what it is. 4 years, $180 million, Minnesota Vikings to the Atlanta Falcons. And then let's go next to Saquon Barkley, all right? Going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know that might have been kind of surprising for some of y'all. You guys are probably thinking that he would end up going to the Chargers or maybe the Texans. 3 years, $37.75 million. Obviously, the blocking up front for Saquon on the Giants was almost dead last. It was normally 30th, 31st, or 32nd, right? Now you go from a team that's normally in the top three, number one, number two, number three. But when they were number one, number two, number three, this was one of the big reasons why. And I'm going to put up a photo of him right now. And I don't think people realize how important this player truly is to the Philadelphia Eagles. And now, you're going to have to realize what football is going to be like without the leader up front on the offensive line, a guy calling all the protections, first ballot Hall of Famer, Jason Kelce. He's no longer there. So Jackson Powers-Johnson, I don't know if you end up going to the Philadelphia Eagles, but I know if you end up getting drafted there, that would probably make the biggest difference for Philadelphia moving forward than any other player in the draft. And I don't know if they are looking at him, but obviously they have to be looking at a replacement with either someone that they already have on the line, drafting someone, or getting someone in free agency. But how often are you going to be able to get an elite center in free agency? Almost never. So it might be a player that they look to draft within the first 4 rounds to be able to replace Jason Kelce. And whoever you get is going to be not as good as him unless it's Jackson Powers-Johnson, because I honestly feel the Ducks got, not only the best center in college football, but I think that Jackson Powers-Johnson could be like a Penei Sewell on the Detroit Lions. These Oregon Duck players are getting coached up on a very high level, and not only are they getting coached up to be Pro Bowl, All-Pro year 1 in the NFL or very early, these guys are being coached up to be Hall of Famers. So we already know you got one that's leaving, but then you got another guy that's going to be joining the squad. So no more DeAndre Swift. Insert Saquon Barkley. Now, do I think this is the best fit, for Saquon Barkley to go to Philadelphia? No. I think that he would have been a better fit, in Houston. I think it would have been a better fit with the Chargers since Eckler moved on. But again, I think this would have been a top 5 fit, but I don't think it was number 1 or number 2. For this, I feel it was more about the money. And how often do guys on Washington, New York, Philadelphia, it just seems like a lot of these guys, and Dallas, a lot of these guys trade teams within the division. It happens more times than not. But I guess, to be able to go from a guy like Swift that normally was a top 12 running back that looked like a top 5 running back with that awesome offensive line. Now you lose a key piece and Jason Kelce. So instead of having maybe the best offensive line in the entire NFL, they'll probably still be top 10. They're not going to go from number 1, number 2, number 3 to number 30 or 20 after just losing one guy. But this is a pretty big piece, right? So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But it will be interesting to see what happens. But I know Saquon is going from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best. So the one thing, though, right, that we have to keep an eye on, right? Saquon Barkley is happy with his signing right now, right? But what happens when this happens? I'm going to pull up a picture. What happens when this player is in the red zone and you guys have him in fantasy and you're banking on a touchdown? You're like, oh, Saquon's going to win me my fantasy game. And then all of a sudden, push, touchdown, Jalen Hurts. Oh, I got another opportunity in the fourth quarter. No way in hell Jalen Hurts does another push or an RPO. 4th down and 1, RPO, touchdown, Jalen Hurts. So I know right now Eagles fans are happy. And I know Jalen Hurts is happy to be able to have a running back maybe upgraded from DeAndre Swift. But when is it going to get to a point where they end up butting heads because Saquon Barkley is supposed to get the touchdown, but then Jalen Hurts steals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 red zone attempts, and he ends up getting the touchdown and not Saquon? At some point, it's going to blow up, with the push and that. They can say, no, we'll be friends and everything will work out. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But that is one concern that I have with Saquon Barkley. When he ends up needing fantasy points for people, or you're banking on Saquon Barkley to get you those points or get you those yards or to get you those touchdowns or his individual numbers, there's going to be one single person that's going to eliminate a lot of those stats, and that's that guy right there. So hopefully Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley can have a good connection and a good relationship, but I could see it getting a little heated at some point in the season, depending on how many push, and red zone touchdowns get stolen from Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, 3 years, $37.75 million. NFL spinning logo, looking fly. My thumbnail game is on point. You already know it. Dollar bills, y'all. You know it, baby. Shout out to all the people watching on Twitter/X. And shout out to all the people watching in the room. And then hopefully we can get a nice little dono train going. I'm going to scroll down through the comments here. I mean, we're almost an hour in. Let me scroll down. Yeah, but he wanted a lot of money. So if essentially you can bring in a player that has a mirror version of him, right? And you can get a Josh Jacobs. They're both normally, when healthy, ranked what? 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the NFL. And then if they get hurt, or they're not healthy throughout the year, maybe they're 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th. But normally they're both around the same touchdowns, yardage, swagger. They both can break tackles. It's just that the Packer fans wanted to keep their own. Jones wanted more money. They already have a backup sitting there that can fill in, but it's not as good as Aaron Jones. But then essentially you bring in a new wave of players and you end up getting Josh Jacobs. So, it's not like you went from Aaron Jones to someone much, much worse. You essentially ended up getting the same type of player on the roster. So, it is a business. We have to remember that. Yeah. But do you think it was worth the money that they gave him? I mean, Honey Badger can still roam the field here and there, but he's nowhere near what he was 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, in my opinion, at this point, instead of going for name recognition, I'd be looking in the draft. But if you can't draft the right player and you feel more comfortable just keeping the guy that you have, then so be it. And we already know the Saints typically don't go for the player that the Saints fan base wants in college or the superstar from LSU coming home. They usually will pick whatever the hell they want that fits their scheme. And a lot of times the guy ends up being a lower name guy. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it not. Still a little early. still a little bit early. And again, we'll have to wait to see what the big free agent player is. But even if the Texans don't make a big splash in free agency, they're already on the up and up with Nico Collins, CJ, and Will. You know, it's like you already got the nice nucleus there, and it looks like the Texans are going to be competitive for many, many years. So even if you don't end up getting a big free agent running back or another free agent player, as long as they draft well the next 2 to 3 years, it's not going to matter. And a lot of times the free agency moves end up being rentals. And in all honesty, it's better to draft a player and have them pan out, because let's be honest, most free agent pickups don't end up producing the same way they did for their original teams. A lot of times the money is paid, but the production is lower when they go to their new teams. So Aaron Jones or Derrick Henry. Yeah, I think that those would be pretty sexy, you know, if you ended up having one of those two guys. I mean, hell, even Singletary coming over was an upgrade. And you saw what you were able to do with even Singletary. So, you know, even though Singletary wasn't a very good running back for Buffalo, he played better with Houston. But again, that was also a product of Houston's coaching, offensive line, and defense, even though they were young. So if you end up getting a guy like Jones or Henry, that definitely would, you know, get you more stats. It wouldn't be something that you're going to have those guys for 5 or 10 years, but for the next 2 or 3 before you find the next Jones or Henry, that would be, you know, something that would be sexy on paper, that's for sure. All right, I'll check it out. Commanders and Eckler. Well, you have to be able to look for money, you know, and once you get to that point, you know, it's going to be about, okay, who's going to offer me money and who's actually interested? And as you see every single name being plucked off the board, you know, it gets you a little bit more worried. And then there's less and less and less, because a lot of times, you know, we know running backs are not valued, right? So would you rather pay, you know, 10, 20 million a year for a running back, or try to find one in the draft and you have them on a 4-year rookie deal, and then you can work around all the other positions that you need? So I think a lot of times, you know, it might not have been the best fit, you know, but it's just the money was there. There was probably only a couple teams interested. So you better take the money now before they change their mind. And then you say, well, let me think about it. And then they decide to go sign someone else. You know, same thing with like Pollard, you know, with the Titans. So now you got to see where Henry and Jones are going. And now with everyone else kind of making a decision and signing on the dotted line, then you have to kind of look to see, okay, what's left? Where can I go to make a future? Where can I get that bag? And so, yeah, it may not make a whole lot of sense, but again, the Commanders are always known for having athletes. What they don't have is a good owner, good GM, even though Snyder is no longer the owner anymore. That was terrible, right? So the ownership may have gotten better from Snyder, but still they're nowhere in a position right now to be very dominant in the NFC, let alone in the NFC East. You know, there's a lot of competition there with Philadelphia, you know, and the Dallas Cowboys and the Giants, right? So we'll have to kind of see where it goes. But again, maybe not the best natural fit, Eckler going to Washington, but as long as he stays healthy, he should be able to help that team out and get better stats than what they were getting with their current running back situation that they have. Derrick Henry to the Ravens, they could do that. That could definitely be a possibility as well. You know, again, you know, you're only going to get so much, you know, out of Lamar. So you have to realize, you know, it's all about health and being able to draft correctly and to be able to make sure that, you know, you're bringing the guys together in that small window, you know, because otherwise, if you can't advance in your 4 or 5 year window, you may have to restructure deals, and then it may take another 2 or 3 years to build the team up again to have that other 3 to 4 year run. It's not like you're going to be like the New England Patriots and have a 20-year run where you're going to be competitive. You know, most good teams, you know, are going to have a 4 to 5 year run, have to either rebuild slightly, blow it up, you know, or make trades. You know, try to figure that out for a year or 2 or 3. And then if you're good enough and you got the right guys in the building, you might be able to go on another 4 to 5 year run. And when you go on a 4 to 5 year run with your, you know, favorite team and your favorite players, that means you got to go to 2 AFC championship or 2 NFC championship, 1 or 2 Super Bowls, and you got to pray that you end up winning while you go, because if not, you may not get back. We thought when the Bengals went, like, wow, Joe Burrow, they look so good. They're going to be back. They're going to be back. But it shows you when you lose a Super Bowl, it's a lot harder to get back to that situation unless you're Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce. Big facts. Wow, that's tough. That's tough. Tommy Townsend to the Texans, good spot for him. I mean, of course, you got replaced, and that hurts, but you won a lot of Super Bowls, and we obviously know Holly loves Tommy. Well, at least I would assume she still loves Tommy. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe it doesn't like him as much now. Maybe it will have more love towards the new punter now, since you're no longer on the Kansas City Chiefs, but I imagine she would still hope that he does well. And that's a great spot for him. We know he's one of the better punters, usually one of the top 10. And the Texans, it may not be good for Jags fans and Colts fans, but it's going to be a very competitive division. And that's what we want for the AFC South and the NFC South. So maybe, maybe not the same type of thing, as being on the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you're thinking about going to another team that's on the up and up, I couldn't think of a better destination than the Houston Texans. Big facts. The Saints are delusional. Well, at least I'm not the only one that thinks that as well. So, but at least you're being real about it, because most Saints fans are just like, oh, we're doing a great job. We're signing everybody. Carr is a god. AK is a god. Michael Thomas is a god. Fuck the Bucks. Fuck the Panthers. Fuck the Falcons. Fuck everybody. And then that's kind of how it goes. So that is a conversation that Saints fans typically give to other fans in the division. But, at least I know that we're not going to go that route with you. So that's good. Oh, no worries. No worries. No worries. The Williams signing actually isn't a bad thing. 3 years, $64.5 million. And the reason why is because with McDonald, getting some Ravens players to kind of come over, they want to be able to see what do you already have set in place. So if anything, it might not be what everyone wanted in Seattle. Remember, just because you're giving money, the 3 years, $64.5 million, right, for Leonard Williams does not mean that you're not going to get Ravens players to come over. If anything, it might give them a better chance to rebuild a baby Ravens on the Seattle Seahawks, which I feel that they're going to do within the next 4 years. You're going to start to see more and more former Raven players, join him in Seattle. You start building up that defense, D-line, linebackers, secondary. You start beefing up that O-line. Then great things are going to happen for Seattle. So again, remember, it may not be your favorite thing or your favorite signing, but sometimes they'll sign a guy to show faith that, hey, this is what we have here, set up on the D-line or wherever, and then it'll give maybe those other guys on the Ravens thinking, okay, I can go here, or I can go to Seattle. Maybe I want to go to Seattle because I really like Mike. I had a good bond with him. Yeah, this other team over here is offering more money, but maybe I want to go play for him. So remember, not a lot of people for the Hawks fans or the 12s may agree with it. A lot of them will say, why? 3 years, $64.5 million, too much money. What are we doing? Stupid. But again, if he ends up producing and if it ends up, being like a bartering tool, saying that, hey, you can join him. We have plenty of money. Just because we sign him doesn't mean that we're forgetting about these others. Then it might actually help you guys recruit and get some more players to come over. So I don't think it's as bad of a deal as people think. Of course, $64.5 million is a lot of money, but you have to look at where free agency is at. Everyone is getting overpaid. Everyone is getting too much money, based on the standards of the contracts and whatnot. And the salary cap keeps going up and up and up every year. So the dollar amount keeps going up. But remember, also the cap goes up. So even though $64.5 million looks like a lot, it really isn't as much as it was last year or the year before if the cap keeps going up. Now, if the cap stays the same or goes lower and there's less money, then you're like, what the hell are we doing? But since it keeps going up and up and up, sometimes you're going to reward a guy with a few more $1 million than possibly that he deserves, And that's facts. Is Leonard Williams worth $64.5 million? Probably not, realistically. Maybe he's worth more 3 years, $45 to $55 million. Maybe that's a little bit more appropriate, but sometimes you want to reward guys for their hard work or just reward a guy because you want him to be on the squad and then they have to figure out where the bonuses are. And a lot of times they're not going to see all of that money. You could have 3 years, $64.5 million, and hell, they might fire him after 2 years and just cut him. So just because the money and the years are laid out doesn't mean that they're going to complete the deal, and not all the money is guaranteed. Unless you're like a Kirk Cousins in his former contracts when it was fully guaranteed, then you're getting the full bag. But unless you're Kirk Cousins, and even Kirk Cousins' last deal wasn't fully guaranteed, so it is what it is. Aquila in the building, full 9-9. Eagles Huff deal has me super excited. Reddick or Sweat are going to be dealt, though. I did see that. So we'll have to see on how it all plays out for y'all. But again, finding the right coaching staff, the right O-line, the right D-line, the right linebackers, the right secondary. There's a lot to be able to fix. Because, go to a Super Bowl, should have won it, lost, had a great year, 10-1, and then just imploded. And a lot of the same players were there. So you have to be able to figure out, is it more the players? Is it the physical part? Or is it more mental? And I feel with the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot of the problems is mental, and they have to be on the same page. So if you don't have the right owner, the right GM, the right head coach, the right OC, the right DC, and if you're not one cohesive unit, then you can turn into the Philadelphia Eagles where you're one of the best in the world, and then you go to one of the teams that that you're probably going to be able to beat. There's no reason the Buccaneers should have beat the Eagles in the playoffs, but when you go 10-1 and then you implode and everyone's arguing with each other, and even though you actually have more physical talent on the field than the Buccaneers, if you're not on the same page, and this guy's like, fuck this guy, to this guy, fuck this guy, I'm not on the same page, then if you're not all linked together, then that's how the Buccaneers were able to beat the Eagles. So, but I am hoping for big things for you guys with Saquon Barkley, 3 years, $37.75 million, as well as Huff and the few others that you're getting. I appreciate you. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks, a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang, $5 holla. Let me know what you want to see for a photo if you got someone, and I'll throw it up for you. Tyree in the building. What's good? Eagles in the building. What's good, brother? We're at 5. We're almost an hour in. Got 95 to go. Let's get it. Geno Stone to the Bengals. There was rumors, a lot of the guys kind of moving from one team to another. Also, Geno rumored to Seattle and a few other teams. At least that's what it was a few weeks ago. We'll see. We'll see a type of fit. We already know. With the North, it's very competitive. Now you got Russ on the Steelers, you got Joe Burrow on the Bengals, right? And you're looking at Cleveland, whether it be Flacco or Deshaun or whatever they decide to do there, right? And then you got Lamar. So it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be a lot of people throwing the football down the field. So anytime you can end up getting solid pieces, on defense to be able to help out, that particular franchise, obviously could definitely be a bonus for you guys moving forward. For real, though. You want Dickerson? Okay, I got you. Let's get the Dickerson photo up, and then I will let you guys go the next route. So obviously we started off with Kirk Cousins, right? Then we went to Saquon Barkley, hence the thumbnail that I did with the $100 bills and the logos in the back. I think this turned out pretty damn well. And then next up, we'll go to Josh Jacobs after I throw up the photo, and then I'll let the people in the room decide where we want to go next. And obviously I have a big list of the tracker, and then it can even, be Baker Mayfield or Russell Wilson, from yesterday. If you want to discuss some of the players that got the deal there, we can go that route. But let me throw up a Landon Dickerson photo up for our boy. What one I can get here. But I know Saquon will be very, very happy with a better O-line. But again, losing Kelsey, that's tough. That's first ballot Hall of Fame. The athleticism that this guy has, all you got to do is watch one highlight of him pulling. Just one. And then you'll realize how good he really is. Anyone that can play center or guard that can pull to the left or right and not only get the initial block on a D lineman, but then also get the second block on a linebacker or a third block on a corner or safety. It's special. There's not a lot of guys. And again, I watch every team in the NFL as if they were my own. So I like to break down the film after the games are over. And this is a sensational player, sensational human on and off the field. But at least they still have a few of the guys over the years, with like Brooks and Kelsey. Some guys are going to come and some guys are going to go. Some guys are going to retire, but they still end up having, a good chunk of studs up front. And this is one of them right here. Landon Dickerson, baby. Look at those arms. I'll get you a college photo too. We always got to rep college football here as well. Ooh, baby. But we got plenty of other names to get into. Spider Burns. We got so many players that we're going to go into. I got all the information here in front of me. So once we end up going through the Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay Packers, which surprised a hell of a lot of people. You obviously woke up and you saw this and you're like, wow, okay. The rumors were true. His wife is from there. Oh, okay, it makes sense, right? And then you're like, okay, it started off with, Kirk to the Falcons. That's why they're on the thumb. And then Saquon to the Eagles. But I think the big thing after these two was right here. As soon as you heard Josh Jacobs and you heard Packers and you're like, wow, are they going to have Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs? And then about an hour after the Jacobs signing, then the Aaron Jones release obviously was made in effect. So let's throw an Aaron Jones up here also. And I know that Packer fans wanted to keep both, but there's just no way that they're going to be able to keep both guys. And I know a lot of Packer fans, whether they want to admit it or not, they know Josh Jacobs is a good player. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. Imagine getting rid of Aaron Jones and then signing like Devin Singletary to be the Packer running back. Imagine if it was something like that. They would just lose their shit, right? And even though you end up having a backup running back, that's pretty good as well, but it's still not the same as Aaron Jones to Aaron Jones. So again, it could have been much, much worse. But again, in their eyes, they're thinking, well, what if we could have gotten Derrick Henry? What if we could have gotten one of these other guys, right? But sometimes they have their eye set on a particular player. And Aaron Jones is out, definitely a fan favorite. And Aaron Jones to Houston. Aaron Jones to Dallas, the Cowboys. I could see it. I think I would rather root for him on the Texans than the Cowboys, in that situation. But, there's definitely going to be a market for Aaron Jones. But how much is the market going to be? We'll find out. And then, obviously, Josh Jacobs, Raiders running back, 4 years, $48 million. Running back market obviously is undervalued, but at least Green Bay has a guy that they can run with. He can catch, he can run. And let's be honest, Aaron Jones, was doing it with a pretty good offensive line for a majority of his career, right? Josh Jacobs has never had an offensive line. So if you remember in fantasy football in the last couple of years, I ended up drafting Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley 2 years ago, and those were 3 of the top 4 running backs in the entire NFL. So, and a lot of times when they have a good year, maybe the next year they drop off a little bit, right? But with Josh Jacobs, his stats are typically good every single year, and every single year he's had a horrible offensive line. He's had one guy like Colton Miller on the line that was considered like aight, and then everyone else was like kind of dog shit. So now you're going to be going, even if you don't have some of the players that you had in the past, like if you're moving on from, Bulaga a couple years ago, going to the Chargers, Bakhtiari, even though he got hurt all the time, the Packer offensive line is going to be better than what you're going to end up getting with the Raiders offensive line. So if Josh Jacobs can do it with shitload offensive line and you actually get an upgraded line, his numbers should be pretty good. The only thing you have to worry about with Josh Jacobs is injuries. So as long as he doesn't get hurt, this could definitely help the Packers stay at the top position with the Detroit Lions, while Minnesota is trying to figure out the quarterback and Michael Penix Jr. moving on from Kirk Cousins. The Bears are going to be dog shit no matter what they do. They can get Caleb Williams. They can grab some receivers. They're still going to be in last place. But with Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love and Christian Watson and you got, Romeo Doubs, and you got all these positions, right? You got to beef up the line more and the defense, but the Packers are always going to be in the mix of their athletic bodies in the athletic skill position spots. Running back, athletic. Wide receivers, athletic. Tight end, athletic. Name any time in Green Bay in the last 30 years that they ever had no athleticism at the running back position, wide receiver position, or tight end position. They've always been athletic there. So now it's just about coaching, right? And then obviously getting good Gutekunst, LaFleur on the same page with Love and Jacobs and those wide receivers and the tight end. And then ultimately it'll come down to play calling, offensive line execution, and then special teams and defense if they want to beat out the Detroit Lions. And if they can't, they can still finish in second place and have a wild card team with the Packers and win about 10 or 11 games. So with this particular deal, 4 years, $48 million. Does Josh Jacobs deserve more than $12 million a year? Yes, I think he does. But again, the running backs are undervalued. So, you're getting a top 7 to top 10 running back, and you're essentially swapping the same type of skill set and player in Aaron Jones with Josh Jacobs. I can't really think of more of a fair 1-for-1 than these guys, because if you're actually looking in like the top 10 running backs in the league, most of the time, both of these guys are ranked 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th. And normally it'll be, I would say most people would have them in the 6, 7, 8 range. So it's like one guy's 7, one guy's 6, one guy's 6, one guy's 7, or they're both 7 or they're both 8. So, I mean, it's fair as a trade-off that you can have in free agency that I've seen so far. Both guys have the capabilities of getting 1,000 to 1,500 yards. Both guys are capable of getting 10 touchdowns or more. Both guys can give you the consistency. But again, sometimes, when you want too much money and you feel that they're just going to eventually cave, then you get slapped in the face and you realize, I didn't realize there was another guy that they were interested in, and they decided to go for the other guy. But it might be a blessing in disguise if Aaron Jones goes to the Houston Texans. Then he can have success with CJ Stroud, and then he can continue his career there. So, sometimes, things happen for a reason. And I know it hurts for Packer fans, but once Aaron Jones, obviously is off the team, and that first game Josh Jacobs has 130 yards and 3 touchdowns, they'll be saying Aaron who? And they'll be saying Josh Jacobs. So there we go. All right, let me go to the comments, and then I'll let you guys decide where we go. If you guys want to go from yesterday with like Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield, kind of notable guys, or if you want to continue to go with guys here, Brian Spida Burns. I was thinking about going there because that was defense next, but you guys let me know what you think, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Well, again, no more Drew Brees. So, Michael Thomas, I don't know if anyone believes that he can play a full season ever again. If I had to take a guess if he could play a full, 17, game season, I would probably say no. I'd have to see it. And then if he does, could he do it 2 years in a row? And the answer probably to that is no. So you're probably going to pay a guy that will only play 6 to 12 games, and that's all you're going to get the rest of his career. So probably not really worth the money. So. All right, I'm going to keep scrolling down. Yep, Pittman got the bag. Singletary to the Giants. So, I mean, imagine you're a Giant fan and you go from Saquon to Singletary. You're fucking sick, right? NC Jolly in the building. T and Queen to Carolina. Well, we'll see. Maybe T. Higgins if you're lucky. Patrick Queen going to Seattle seems more likely, though, to play with McDonald, because he has a relationship there. But we will find out. It'll be very interesting to see where some of these guys end up landing, for sure. Yep. Appreciate you. $5 holla. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. And do you want T and Queen for photos? Is that who you want? Or is there someone else that you want for your photos? NC Jolly, let me know. I mean, it all depends if you're going for money or if you're going to be going for like team fit, you know, and also there has to be interest. So $10, 90 to go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, if Queen ends up coming to Seattle, you don't give a shit about the Williams money. And again, Seattle is going to have to use the money. So again, not every deal is going to be liked by every 12. Not every deal is going to be liked by every fan. And anytime money is involved, most people are going to be unhappy with it, and most people are going to think that's too much money. That's how our brains are wired when we see these $100 million contracts, because we can't even fathom even ourselves making $1 million per year, let alone these guys making 30, 40, 50 million in a year. So just to even fathom how much money that is, if we could actually have that kind of money in our own lives. But again, you have to understand the NFL is a business, and just because you give a guy a 3-year deal, you know, for 40, 50, 60 million, doesn't mean that Leonard Williams is going to be on Seattle for all 3 years. And again, it might end up, being a domino effect on getting other players to join, rather than seeing a lot of Seattle players leave. Sometimes you're going to want to have Seattle players stay, so that way that it'll give an incentive for maybe another guy like Queen to be able to join a player like him, and then they can feed off each other and make each other better. So again, we already know Seattle's O-line and defense need a lot of work. So again, letting a guy go and then having more money, and then what happens if you don't spend the money? And then all of a sudden you're losing pieces, and then you're just going to have to draft a lot of guys and hope that you hit. And so sometimes it is good to have a little bit in free agency, a little bit in the draft, but ultimately you have to realize, just because you draft a guy or you bring a guy in free agency, either back to your team or from another team, it may or may not work out. They may tear an ACL in week 3 and then it's done, right? You might cut the guy after a year. So just because you see the money, like I said, it's not going to be fully guaranteed. And there is no fully guarantee any player that we discuss is going to be there based off their contract. So we'll wait and see, initially for a year or two to, see what they do. But a lot of times, you got to keep an open mind. And there's a lot of money. And remember, the cap goes up every year. The cap doesn't stay the same or go lower. So if it stayed the same or went lower, then more people could be very concerned about the money, because the money means more. But if the cap keeps going up, that means you have more money to spend. So, like in that existence with like Leonard, maybe he's only worth, somewhere in the 30s or $40 million. But if he ends up getting closer to 50 or 60, that's just because the cap went up and they have more money to blow. Now you would rather blow that money towards Patrick Queen's way, but maybe they still will. So it all depends on how much money you have to spend and how wisely you spend it. And also remember, just because you see 3 years, $55, $60 million, it may not all be fully guaranteed. It might be front-loaded or back-loaded, and it might have bonuses involved too. So they may not be getting all of the money that it seems like. Like, just look at Shohei Ohtani's contract and the way that it's broken down. People can see, oh my God, he made so much money. 10 years, $700 million. But if you're back-loading the contract or front-loading it, the terminology is different. So a lot of times you actually have to go into the terminology of a contract to fully understand contracts and how they work in the NFL. The NFL is a business. And I would say majority of NFL fans, they don't understand it. They think they understand it. They see the number, but they don't actually understand fully what it all entails. And then once the team releases that info, you have to be able to read it, and then you have to be able to comprehend it, because a lot of the information and a lot of the wording can be a little bit hard to understand unless you know what words to be looking for. So I think it ends up being where it'll be okay. Is it a little bit too much money? Like, if I'm a Seahawks fan, am I happy with 3 years, $64.5 million like Megan? No, I would be more happy 3 years, $40 million. That would be more what I would feel comfortable in. But again, since the cap went up, they decided to kind of throw a little bit more per million per year. And you also have to compare it, right, to other D linemen that are getting money. So that's the whole negotiation process. If they see Joe Blow, over here, and he's getting 3 years, $62 million, and then you look at his stats, and then you look at your own, and you're like, look, my stats are better than fucking Joe Blow. Why is he getting 3 years, $62 million? You better get me a couple million or X a million more. So that ends up happening, and that's why guys get overpaid, because a lot of times guys that are shittier at football get a bigger contract, and then when you get an elite player that deserves to get paid, sometimes he doesn't get enough, and the shitty player gets too much. And that's, they have to base it off other contracts, and that's what makes it tricky. You're like, look what I did, and then you look at some like jobber player that had 5 less sacks in the year. I had 10. This guy has 3. He's getting paid $62 million. Why am I getting the same kind of offer? I deserve more. So in that negotiation process, there's a lot of back and forth. So obviously, we know, you and me, $64.5 million, 3 years. Seattle Seahawks or any team in the NFL, that's too much. We get it. But again, the way that the NFL is working right now, it is what it is. And there's going to be a lot of other deals that are going to be a little bit frowned upon. But if you end up landing Patrick Queen, no one's going to give a shit. If Patrick Queen comes, he ends up balling out, he makes Leonard Williams better, he balls out, and then the D-line is better, no one's going to care about the money figures anymore. All you're going to care about is wins, and then winning the NFC West, and then getting a wild card, or winning the division, and then eventually, winning a couple playoff games, and then hopefully getting to the NFC Championship game, and then the magical area, the Super Bowl. So, because I know that's how it works for my team and many others too. I'm going to keep scrolling down. Megan won the tour, right? And then you ended up not getting Disley. But again, if you're looking at his production, you're a fan favorite of him. Yeah, but if he only has a couple touchdowns, as like the backup, for the last couple years, you have to be smart about your money. So again, you might have a guy that is an amazing man off the field, social media, or, you just like him because he was on the Hawks. But again, it's all about production and fit. And at the end of the day, it's a business. And sometimes our favorite players end up getting traded or going to other teams just because their production isn't good enough to keep them on the team moving forward. So, you didn't get to keep both, but you got one. And it probably kept the better one. Because even though Fant might be the worst Iowa tight end out of all the Iowa tight ends that have come out in the last 15, 20 years, he's still better than Disley. So it's like he might not be a top 5 like a Dallas Clark, a George Kittle, a TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, you might not have that type of player in Noah Fant, but if you get Noah Fant the ball, he's still a top 16 tight end. It's just a matter of he doesn't really get that many opportunities. He had a problem with drops when he was on the Broncos. I think he's kind of fixed that to a certain degree. So again, a lot of times it's, opportunities and targets. But if you had to choose between one or the other, I think that was the better one to keep. So $2 holla, stacks on stacks, racks on racks, Cactus Jack, bang, bang, $2 holla. But I always try to keep it into a mind frame of I have to imagine myself as every fan. I have to imagine being Megan and being a Seattle fan. I have to imagine being Sarah, being a Colt fan. What is best for business? And I got to imagine what it's like to be the coach and the OC and the owner. And, based off how their reputation is of picking players in the draft and free agency. I really try to dig deep, and get in the mind of these players and these coaches. And that's why I feel that I can come up with better predictions than most people on social media. A lot of my predictions will come true. I'm not going to be right about everything, but I feel a lot of my predictions, come true more than a lot of the other people that are out there. Because I'm not a follower. I'm a leader. I always come up with all my own stuff. I don't just go to some other YouTube channel, listen to some guy's video, and then I say, yep, I'm going to copy exactly what he said and go that route. I can't do that. So $12. Let's get to a hundo. Yeah, Mixon got cut. That was something that was already kind of noted, that there was rumors that Joe Mixon was going to get cut, if that's who you're talking about. Because obviously it sounded like they were going to move on from Mixon, right? Tyler Boyd was going to come back, and they were going to move on from T. Higgins and let him explore. Because a lot of times people want to keep these players, but if you're over the cap and you have other needs, you have to be able to give the most money to the guys that are the most important. And sadly, when you have too many good players and their contracts are up around the same time, certain guys end up getting let go. There is no reason Mixon or Higgins should be leaving Cincinnati. They are a fantastic fit with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. But if you can't afford everyone, you know, you have to be able to give the money if that's to Burrow and Jamar Chase, and that's where you're going to have to go. So. Well, it all depends on how much information people have been reading up. And again, a lot of information will be out there by like Adam Schefter and like the NFL correspondents. But also, too, if you go to the team websites of other teams, blogs, you know, the beat writers that actually are with the team, you can't believe anybody on the internet. Not everyone is going to have the information, but some of these insiders do have a little bit of authenticity to some of their takes, and some of the stuff actually does come true. Let me know what you guys want to do for photos for Megan, as well as NC Jolly. We'll throw up a T. Higgins and a Patrick Queen, and then for both, and then we'll go from there. So let me get the let's get the T. Higgins up. T. Higgins to the Texans would be nice. You know, get another receiver over there. I mean, if you're looking to just, you know, spend money, they need running back stability more than a receiver to play with Nico Collins. But could you imagine T. Higgins on the opposite side of Nico Collins? Kind of sexy. You know, CJ Stroud rookie cards are already going through the roof. So, but we'll see where T. Higgins lands. And I'm more of a fan of Patrick Queen because I'm a defensive guy, but I have mad respect for T. Higgins. I mean, it's like, would I take T. Higgins or Patrick Queen on the Buccaneers? Hell yeah, I would. Kidding me? Of course. Studs. First, I got to do a throwback from him in college, and then we'll do a pro photo. I just love squeaking in the college stuff because sometimes we forget. It's like, oh, Landon Dickerson. Okay, so now Jason Kelsey is retired, so they're going to be banking on other guys to step up. And then, oh, yeah, he played at Alabama. It's just cool to be able to see the growth of the guys, you know, physically, mentally, and, you know, how they're blossoming in front of our very eyes. And there's Patrick Queen, LSU. I mean, imagine how amazing Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Devin White, Patrick Queen. My goodness. Patrick Queen is an animal. See if I can get a photo with him with his helmet off. See if I can find something or something action shot here. Let me know whatever things that you're looking at, the two of you, I got you. And then I will let anyone else decide where we want to go. I mean, we got lots of names to be able to go over. Love you, appreciate you too, bro. Absolutely, I got you. I like sideline to sideline guys, you know, that have passion. And, you know, some guys, you know, some you know, of your guys' favorite teams will have guys like that. And some of your guys' favorite teams don't have anybody like that. Like maybe you used to, and you don't. And when you have a guy that is sideline to sideline, you know it. And it feels good to have those kind of guys. I've been blessed with Derek Brooks and Levante David and Devin White, so I know what it takes to be elite at that position. And I can't wait to see where he ends up going. It's going to hurt the Baltimore Ravens losing him. They're not going to be the same. They're still going to be pretty good at defense, but, it's just like if you end up looking at like the Chicago Bears, losing certain pieces like Roquan Smith and losing Khalil Mack, they haven't ever recovered since they lost those two gems. So, you have to be very, very careful, on, who you decide to pay and who you decide to let go. Big facts. I'll get you some Noah Fant. I gotta get you a crispy one if I can find you a crispy. Let's see if I can find you a crispy. Noah Fant. Yeah, I would almost say, if I had to take a guess, if Queen was going to come to Seattle or not, I would probably say it's a 90% chance you're going to sign him. Just based on everything that I've read, just trying to be able to have that good relationship. And of course, I think that, if he had a choice to be able to stay, I think he would stay. But again, if it's not a choice for him to stay and, money, they won't be able to pay him enough of what he wants. And, he has to go somewhere else. Where would be a better place to go if you can't stay in Baltimore and you can't come to an agreement on the money, right? You might as well go where your former, coordinator coach was, who's on a new team. And what does the new team need? Defense. Bad, right? Just like offensive line. So Patrick Queen to Seattle would be awesome. Especially, with some of the other players, may or may not being there with like Bobby Wagner and then a few of the others. There's going to be D linemen leaving, linebackers leaving, and secondary that has to be replaced, based off the cuts. So Noah Fant looking good in that Iowa Hawkeye, baby. See if I can have a good Seattle one here. Woo, baby. I'm looking. See if I can get this one to format. I tried doing these other ones, but I gotta hit with the throwback. I mean, especially with all those beautiful throwback jerseys we had last season. Beautiful. Let's see if I can get this one to convert. Woo! There we go. That's what I was looking for. So fresh and so clean. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that doesn't like Patrick Queen. Obviously, Patrick Queen, he may not be as good as Roquan Smith, as being like one of the top dogs, and obviously they can't afford to probably keep both. But Patrick Queen is solid. He's one of the better, players in the NFL, and I think anyone would be excited to have him. Same thing with like Spider Burns. There's certain guys on defense, whether people know how good they are or they don't. It just depends on how many games that you watched from that other team, and if you're familiar with those guys. So he may not be a Roquan Smith, but Patrick Queen is still damn good. And I'll tell you what, if I had the bag and I had the money to get Patrick Queen, fuck yeah, I would. In a heartbeat.
Where do you think Aaron Jones will go? That's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, the Texans still have an opening for a running back. So Aaron Jones to the Cowboys, Aaron Jones to the Texans. That could make sense. Same thing goes for Derrick Henry. So there's going to be a few guys that will be available, and maybe one goes to the one team. Derrick Henry ends up going to the Cowboys, and maybe Aaron Jones goes to the Texans. And I think it would be a great fit for both of those guys and both of those teams if they were to go there. They need to be able to hold certain positions with some accountability, and the Cowboys need to have that physicality and that anger, and I don't think they've had that with Zeke and Tony Pollard, so they would get that stability of that guy that would run you over. Even though Derrick Henry is older, it would be a good fit in Dallas for the Cowboys. And then again, many fits for the Texans, but if it ends up being Aaron Jones, since Eckler went to the Commandos, that could make sense too. So if I'm the Texans, I'm doing my homework, and there might be a running back in college that they're looking at instead of overpaying for a player. But Aaron Jones on the Texans would be sexy. That would probably, him on the Cowboys would still be good, but not as sexy to me. But sexy would be Texans, because I just think that, they're more likable than the Cowboys. But Aaron Jones would be able to put up some good stats on either team. Big facts. Iowa, that's Sarah's favorite team. So they're kind of known for tight end university. So they've had Dallas Clark, who's like pretty much a Hall of Famer. That was with like Peyton Manning, right? They have George Kittle from the Niners. That's from there, right? They have TJ Hawkinson, who's from there. And that was the same draft. They had Hawkinson and Fant on the team at the same time. It was like a luxury. It was like, imagine having Gronk and Hernandez at the same time. That's kind of what they had in college. So they've always pumped out really good tight ends. So even though he might be the lower one that didn't pan out like the others, but also he's the one that really hasn't gotten the opportunity like the others. Like he's never gotten an opportunity to get 10 looks a game, and if it ever got to a point where he did, well, maybe his stat line would be a little bit increased, but that's going to be something that he needs to work on himself. And also he had a battle of the dropsies, when he was in Denver. And so once you kind of got labeled as a guy that dropped the ball, then he got less and less and less looks. His value went lower and lower and lower. Still a decent player, still a guy that could end up getting 400 to 600 yards and maybe 3 to 5 touchdowns in a year. But if he actually went somewhere where he got the ball more, like if he ended up going to the Niners and Kittle got hurt and then Fant was there and they were actually going to him, he could be a guy with his skill set to get like 800 yards and 6 tutties. He could double his average going somewhere that gave him opportunities. But again, if you can't keep Dissly and you can't keep Fant, keeping Fant over Dissly was a smart decision. You have more upside in Fant than you do with Dissly, even though Dissly isn't necessarily terrible. But again, if you only score a couple touchdowns in a couple years, chances are your money might be spent wiser somewhere else. So. I don't know, man. No, because if you're going to get a guy like Worthy, who's like, under 6 foot, and he was like 165 pounds. Yeah, I know he wants to play with Patrick Mahomes and be like Tyreek Hill, but you already got Bryce Young as being short and undersized. Do you really want to have a skinny wide receiver that if he gets jammed on the line, he might fall down? It's one thing if you're playing the outside, but, he can't play, at the slot and go over the middle because he'll just get fucking obliterated. Fatality, animality, babality, it's over. So the only thing that he's going to be able to do is go deep, or if he ends up doing like a little out route. So if you got a guy that even if he lifts weights and he goes from 165 to 190, he's still really thin. So yeah, if you can get him the ball deep, it could work. But the offensive line needs such work that he's not going to have time to go deep to have those Xavier Worthy 50-yard bombs get completed. So if it's me, and I'm looking at the way that roster is shaped, stop going for guys that are trying to put butts in the seat. Start building the O-line and the D-line and then working inside out, not outside in. If you just worry about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, you're going to be the worst team in football for the next 3 or 4 years. But if you start drafting and getting free agents correctly, and slowly filling the gaps, you guys will get better. But if you're just going to be going for name recognition guys, like the guy that just broke the 40-yard dash, look at all the guys that have been good at the 40-yard dash. Most of them don't even pan out in the NFL. So yeah, it's a cool thing that he did, and he's from Texas. Hook 'em horns, whether you're hooking him up or you're hooking him down. But there's no way in hell that you want to draft a guy who's 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", depending on who's measuring him, and 165 to 180 depending on who's weighing him. And at the combine he was at 165. That's insane. Because you got to think most corners are going to be 200. You jam a guy on the line, he falls down, you're fucked. And it's not like Bryce Young's got a whole lot of time to get the ball to his receivers. I mean, even though him and Adam Thielen had a pretty good connection, but again, Adam Thielen's old. You need someone newer and younger and more physical. Now, if you could end up getting a guy like an A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf build, that would be something that would help out Bryce a hell of a lot more than a fast, speedy guy. There's no point in getting a D-Jax kind of player if you can never get D-Jax the ball, Xavier Worthy, in my opinion. And again, I break down the film and I'm watching all these teams, so that's my opinion. If you want to put butts in the seats, but I mean, if you want to continue being the worst team in the NFL, then you take Worthy with the 33 pick. But no, you don't want to grab a guy like that. There's so many holes to fill on your O-line, your D-line, and your linebackers and your secondary, let alone running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and possibly quarterback in a couple of years if Bryce can't do it. As well as the owner and the head coach and the OC and the DC. So, yeah, there is no circumstance in my brain that Worthy gets picked at that spot for you guys. No. Okay, no problem. Enjoy some video games, and I appreciate your support. And if there's any other news, come back and let me know if you see any breaking news through the 12s or the Hawks. We'll keep an eye on things. All right. Where do we want to go next? So we went through many players. So I'll let you guys. I mean, I have a huge list, and you guys can if you want to ask what I think or where we're going. But we started off with Kirk Cousins, then we went to Saquon Barkley, then we went to Josh Jacobs, and then obviously Aaron Jones, and then a little bit of T. Higgins, right, and then Patrick Queen, and then maybe where they might end up landing. But again, I mean, I got all the names. I got Cousins. I got Chris Jones. I got Josh Allen, Madubuike, Danielle Hunter, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Johnson, Spider Burns, Antoine Winfield Jr., Baker Mayfield, Michael Pittman. We got all these other guys, and a lot of these things happened yesterday. So I didn't have a chance to do a kind of a breakdown of Russell Wilson or Baker Mayfield. But again, there's a lot of other names that we can go over. So if there's any other big name that you want to discuss that did get the bag, or even if it's of a smaller name, you let me know. But I got all the names and everything up here. So it's crazy too. A lot of the secondary that was on the Buccaneers when we won the Super Bowl is no longer on the team anymore. Almost 3 out of the 4 guys that were in the secondary are no longer there. Moving from team to team, just like Sean Murphy Bunting leaving and then going to Tennessee and now going to Arizona, and then Carlton Davis moving on to another team as well. So I don't really want to say that I'm surprised, but again, sometimes when you get guys on a rookie deal, they're going to find a way to get their bag and they're going to try to go somewhere else. So we still got Tony Pollard to the Titans and a few other names that we can go over. Eckler to the Commanders. That's kind of a big one. But again, I'll let you guys decide where you guys want to go, or if someone donates, we can kind of go from there. So David in the building. What's good? $2 holla. What's good, baby? Saquon Barkley. $2 holla. Stacks on stacks. Racks on racks. With a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. $2 holla. So obviously he moved on from DeAndre Swift, right, and ended up getting an upgrade. But remember, Jason Kelce retired, so you still got good pieces, like Dickerson up front. But still, there's going to be certain positions that are going to be upgraded. And to go from one of the bottom 2 offensive lines with the Giants to go to one of the top 3, typically in the top 5, number 1, number 2, number 3, typically in the Philadelphia Eagles. It's going to be a very interesting thing to see for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's why we got Kirk Cousins, Kirko Chains, obviously on the right, and we got Saquon Barkley on the left. How do you feel about it? Sounds like you like it. He says, I like this deal. 3 years, $37.75 million. Yes, appreciate you. Let me know what you want to do for photos. If it's Saquon photos, I can throw that. Let me know. You want to go Pittman since that's your team? Okay, we can do that. And when did the Michael Pittman information come out? Was that yesterday? Is that the same time that happened with Russell Wilson and also Baker Mayfield? So we can go over some of the ones from yesterday if we need to. And then let me know what you want to do for photos. If you want Saquon photos or if you want photos of other players the Eagles have signed, let me know, and I got you. Appreciate you. Right. I'm not really surprised, and I felt that the Jaguars was a rental. So, it's going to be, going somewhere that might be more of a natural fit for him. And, if the Kansas City Chiefs, they couldn't get Mike Evans, and if they don't get T. Higgins, the Chiefs, and if they don't draft a wide receiver, which I feel they will, whether it be, Rome Odunze or Troy Franklin or someone, or Xavier Worthy, maybe a Calvin Ridley to the Chiefs if they're interested. And if Ridley doesn't want that much money, maybe that's a possibility. Fletcher Cox retiring, we could do that as well. That's why I brought it up. All right, let's throw Fletcher Cox up, and then we'll go with a Michael Pittman for Sarah and go over the details. See if I can get you a couple Fletcher Cox swaggy photos. Fletcher Cox, stud. Hall of Famer. Will he be first ballot? I think he's deserving of first ballot, but he might not get in first ballot. He might have to wait till like second ballot. Like he might have to wait, one transition or two transitions before he gets in. But I'm pretty sure he'll get in. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Obviously, getting a Super Bowl, getting the Super Bowl victory definitely helps. But you could have almost had two, though. Still kind of irks me, too, because like I said, I've only gotten one Super Bowl winner wrong in like 22 years. And it was this Eagles Super Bowl. The only time I decided to go against Patrick Mahomes, and I know the rule, I normally never go against him. Obviously, when the Buccaneers played, that was a different story, right? But I figured as long as you guys got a couple sack lunches and a couple picks, you're going to win. O-line, D-line, defense coaching, play calling. Jalen did his job, but the defense let you guys down. But again, hopefully in the near future, you guys will have another opportunity for another Super Bowl victory. I like that photo. That one came out kind of crispy. That's a crispy one with the visor too. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where obviously Saints and Lions are always connected. So we'll have to kind of see, if some of these players that are going back and forth from those teams, and sometimes they'll play on the Eagles as well. We'll see if, after the injury, if he ends up coming back. Oh, yeah. Kelsey's first ballot Hall of Fame, no doubt. I mean, the athleticism for a center to pull, left and right and get the D lineman, second level, linebacker, third level, safety. There's not many centers, let alone guards that can do that, or tackles. Yeah, he's amazing. And a lot of words, can be said, to the public, but nobody really knows the connections besides the players and the coaches that are in the building. So again, things can get heated where you can be like, fuck that team, or fuck this, or fuck that. You're heated in the moment. Then a couple years pass, a couple injuries happen, and then, maybe you're up to the idea of coming back. if, they want you back and you want to play for them. So, a lot of times you have to understand, just because words are said, doesn't mean that that's the way they feel for the rest of their life. We're human. Sometimes we can get heated and things can be said, but also we can forgive and we can forget and we can move on. So, all right, let's go to a little Michael Pittman, and we'll go over that for Sarah. And if there's anyone else that you guys want to go over based off the deal. Bengals fans are a little upset still because they didn't get a chance to, get their T. Higgins. Mike Evans to the Bucs. I got my dream to come true, with my guys, Antoine Winfield Jr., Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. I told you that we were going to keep all three, and we did. And that's a lot of reading and a lot of film study and a lot of interviews that I watched to be able to come to that conclusion. And then obviously Sarah making sure that she keeps one of her best pieces that she actually has besides AR and Jonathan Thomas there. Jonathan Taylor, right? So there he is. Michael Pittman. 3 years, $71.5 million, and is one of the key targets and the best receiver that's on the Indianapolis Colts at this moment, wide receiver 1, and we'll see what else that they actually build around him. Anybody else that you want to be able to see photo-wise? I'm trying to look to see what other notable names based off the list that I have. Grover Stewart, obviously re-signing him. I'll throw him up next for you as well. And I believe those are the only two that we have so far for the Colts. You let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure those are the only two that I see. And then 3 years, $39 million is a good price for Grover Stewart. And actually, it's a discounted price. Grover Stewart is worth more than $39 million. Grover Stewart is worth 3 years, $45 to $50 million. So you actually kind of got a discount on that one. And I know you're happy about Grover Stewart as well because he balled out for you guys. And if there's anybody in the room, based on who donated and whatnot or didn't donate, let me know. And I got you. Another cool Pittman photo that I've never debuted. This is a very first. It's a dope one too. I've been looking for one without his helmet on that's crispy, little HD 4K, but some of them are not formatted. The size of the photo is fucked up, but this one is perfect. Let's go. Nice one where you can actually see what he looks like. I know. Wouldn't it be so cool to see Kelce be able to block for Saquon? I mean, if you have that same offensive line, Saquon could lead the league in rushing. He could be number one running back if he could stay healthy for 17 games with the Eagle offensive line. I mean, that could be huge. You know that, and I know that. JJ Watt, TJ Watt. I mean, there's going to be a few sets of brothers that are pretty good, but obviously Kelce's and the Watts got to be at the top. TNT in the building. What's good? McKinney is a good pickup. The thing is can he stay healthy? That's the big thing. But if he can stay healthy, that's a good pickup. Yeah, I don't know. You're taking the NFL free agency a little bit different than us, but again, you're more college football oriented, right? Rather than NFL. I know you say you're an NFL fan and you like watching the Broncos and the Packers, but you're more college football. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. But for a lot of us, the NFL, we live and breathe and we, eat, breathe shit NFL 24/7, 365. And if you're more college football, that's okay. If you don't want to talk about the issues with the, you know what I mean? But again, the guys moving and going from different teams, there's no loyalty in sports anymore. So you have to understand that. So just because you fall in love with certain players on the Broncos and the Packers, they're not going to be there forever. It's a business, and you have to realize the NFL is a business, and college football is starting to become a business as well. So you just have to come to that realization, brother. All right, let's get a Grover Stewart up here. It's okay to like college football more than the NFL. Not everyone is going to be like that, but But again, it's like I equally love both. You know what I mean? But for a lot of us, NFL is, number one, even though I got that same kind of love on the college football side. So let me see if I can get this Swaggy Grover. See if this one will format for me. Hold on, I want to get a better Grover. I got to get a better Grover. That's not up to my standard. Didn't fit the screen. It didn't format correctly, and it was an odd size, but I thought I'd try. Here we go. I got a better Grover now. And Grover is not a big name, but again, if you're a Colt fan or if you're a defensive guy and 3 years, $39 million, Grover Stewart actually balled out. And even though not a lot of people know who he is, 6'4", 315, he's 30, 7 years in the league. And like I said, he's a good piece to have in that rotation at D-tackle. Big fact. 3 years, $39 million, baby. Stewart played since being drafted in the team in 2017, missed 6 games in 2023 for a suspension, right? But since then, 41 tackles, 23 solo, 0.5 sacks. You want more sack lunches, obviously. But as far as, having a guy that that has a big upside, and then that way that you don't have to pay him 40, 50. Now, if he would have had 5, 6, 7, 8 sack lunches, then you're going to have to pay in that 50 to 60 million range. But since he got suspended and then had a little bit lower of a stat line, you were able to get him on a discounted price. And I know that ends up working out for a Colts fan tremendously. Grover and Michael Pittman Jr. Where do we want to go next? You guys let me know. Yeah, but the thing is you're not an NFL guy to like a lot of us. Like we watch every single game beginning to end. We're watching other games beginning to end. I feel that like you can watch football, but if you're not watching your team play every single game beginning to end, if you're not, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference on fandom, as far as NFL fans are. And, some people are fair weather. Some, fans are, they're going to occasionally watch. Some fans are watching every game. Some fans, quit on their team when they get blown out. Some are watching into the very end. Some people are watching 4 full games every single week. So there's different levels of fandom. So it's not like you're not an NFL fan, but I feel that compared to a lot of the hardcore NFL fans that are a part of this channel, you're not on the same level of some of those guys, which is not a bad thing. You just love college football more. You love wide receivers, which is great. You love tight ends. You love the Ducks. You love college football. And then NFL is just kind of a side piece. That's just how it goes, right? College football is your wife. NFL is your girlfriend. I mean, that's just the reality of how, your mindset is. And that's okay. You know what I mean? I feel that, you're not going to, you're going to get over emotional on some of the trades and the way that we talk about players and whatnot. You have to understand most NFL fans, are going to be assholes. Like I said, here, you're going to be able to get the truth, right? And we're going to rip into people that we need to rip into. But you have to understand, if you go to any other channel, it's going to be a hell of a lot more toxic than this channel. This is the least toxic out of any channel that's out there, even though we rip into players occasionally. But if we rip into players, we typically have a reason to rip into them. But the problem is that you get these other channels, they just rip on everyone, whether they deserve it or not. So. The Brandon Graham. Yeah. I see you. Yeah, and it's always going to be a point where it's like, okay, if you have 8 teams, number 9 and 10 are going to be pissed. If you have 12 teams in the tourney, right, 13 and 14 are going to be pissed. If you have 16 teams, right, number 17 and 18 are going to be pissed. No, you're never going to make anyone happy, but at least you have to understand, if you're going to have 12 to 14 teams in the playoffs in the NFL, right, or, 10 to 12 or 14 in MLB, and you only have 30 to 32 teams total, and half are making the playoffs. How are we having over 100 Division I and only 4 teams in college football? It doesn't make sense. At the very least, you should have 8, 12, 16, to be able to counteract the 100 Division I, because that's why it always felt that it was either Georgia, Bama, Michigan, Ohio State, or maybe a weird team like Clemson with Dabo and Trevor Lawrence. And if you're not one of those 4 or 5 teams, good luck. The best that you're going to win is a Rose Bowl, and that is it. You know what I mean? And now it gives kind of hope, with Saban retiring, Harbaugh going to the Chargers, right? That there's other teams like Texas and Oregon that might have a chance to actually win a natty now, and it's a little bit more even with recruiting. It's not all the recruits are going to Georgia and Bama. All the recruits are going to Michigan and Ohio State, and everyone else is just a big fuck you. Like, at least other teams now are going to have a shot, and it's going to be more well-rounded. Now, if you end up getting to a point where 1 versus 12 play, or the first couple teams have the bye, or however they do it, 1 versus 12, 2 versus 11. Then when you get to 6 versus 7, that's going to be fucking exciting as shit, because you don't really know who's going to win. But the first initial ones, the best team in the country going against like number 12, blowout. But as you get further along, there's going to be upsets, and that's going to be good. And there's no loyalty in the NFL or college football. So you have to understand, every single year, if you're one of the top, 10 teams in the country, you may have a rotational wheel of quarterbacks that are going to want to play for Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Bama, Georgia. So even if we don't get the number 1 rated quarterback in Oregon for that year, or Washington, who cares? We're going to be able to steal someone else's, and you're going to be able to get one. Achilles Smith Jr. is coming. We're going to have plenty of quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel, Dante, we Dante Moore. We got plenty, you know what I mean? But again, if you're not one of the top dogs, then everyone else is going to feel like what we felt for years and years and years. It just so happens we got Dan Lanning, and that we can actually feel that we, with Sarkisian and Texas, we are going to be able to benefit the most out of everyone. Bama and Georgia are going to take a hit. Michigan's going to take a hit. Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas are going to have the best, chance to go higher than people expect. And that's good facts. MSU in the building. What's good? Oh, I ended up going to the arcade on Saturday. Amazing. Okay. Had some beers, right? Had some smoke. Had some beers. Played a couple games. We played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's through like the Nickelodeon arcade. Brand new moves, brand new system. Took us probably an hour to beat, but we beat it. Amazing setup for that arcade system, because we've beaten all the old Ninja Turtle arcade games that have been at the arcade. That was the last one that we never beat. But I said, you know what? Once we started getting into the levels, I was like, let's beat this game. Even if it costs us $20 each, fuck it. Let's just do it, because it's like you put $10 or $20 in the machine, and then it gives you a card, and then you just scan the card in front of the machines. You don't actually put quarters in these machines anymore. And it's a 2-level arcade. 2 stories. We did that. Then we went to Sizzle Pie. I wanted 1 piece of pizza. They gave me 2. Got a free one. Then we ended up going to Shake Shack, and then we split a burger and fries, because it was right across the street. So we did that, and then ended up. What did we do? Ended up getting some M&Ms and some beer. Obviously for the Blazer game. Blazer game went into overtime. We actually won. It was an amazing night. And then I ended up getting this amazing. It's from Disneyland Star Wars, and my favorite character in Star Wars is Darth Maul. And my buddy wanted to get the Darth Vader statue, and then the Darth Maul was going to be for me. But when he went back, the Darth Vader was sold out, and he had to end up, getting it ordered. But then he ended up getting the Darth Maul for me, and I got it in my hands, and it is fucking awesome. So in return, I gave him a Clyde Drexler McFarlane from like early days. Chief, thank you so much, man. And then I gave him that, which he's a big Blazer fan still to this day. So I figured I got this really cool Clyde Drexler McFarlane, worth $20 to $30. He would appreciate it. It's sitting in my room and I look at it every day, but it would be awesome for him to have it. I've given him probably 20% of my expensive shit that is like Mariners or Blazers related, because he's like my best friend. And then I hooked him up with a couple Julio Rodriguez rookie cards. But this Darth Maul statue that I got, I should have probably showed it to Megan, because she's probably the biggest into Star Wars other than me. But next time she comes in. So now I got the Black Series Darth Maul figure in the package, and I got this amazing statue. And it doesn't light up or anything like that. There's no batteries that you put in it. It's kind of like a paperweight, just statue. It's heavy. It weighs 3 to 5 pounds, but it's fucking detailed and it is awesome. Really sweet. MSU in the building. What's good? Carlton, it hurts me because I see all of my secondary leaving. It's like all the guys. It's like we watched the first game with the Bills and the Jets, right? And then we saw Whitehead get 3 picks in that game, right? He used to be on my Tampa Bay secondary. I miss him. Right? John Murphy Bunting was on my team. Then they made him go to the Titans, and then he moved on, I believe, to the Cardinals. He's gone. Now Carlton Davis, now he's gone. So it's like every single piece, that I really started to fall in love with. But it shows you, if you have a young secondary with Tom Brady and Gronk and Arians and Devin White and Levante David, and you had all those guys up front, Ndamukong Suh, JPP, Shaq Barrett, they were able to get the most out of those young guys. And will those guys be anywhere near the talent that they were when they had Brady? No. None of those guys will ever recover. None of those guys that were on the Bucs that are now on other teams are going to be as good as they were when they were there. A lot of them are injury prone now, but some still have a pretty good skill set, like Whitehead, right? Like Murphy Bunting and Davis, but they do get kind of hurt a lot, or at least it seems like they have been. But I will be rooting for Carlton Davis to do big things for the Lions, and I hope he helps them out tremendously. Chief, baby. What's good, bro? I appreciate you. Oh, yeah, you guys aren't done. And L'Jarius Sneed is still on the table, but I just don't know if you guys want to overpay. And you guys will be doing some magic, in different areas. So we'll have to wait and see. $20 holla, my boy. What's good, bro? Stacks on stacks. Racks on racks. A little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. What's good, bro? Throw up a Chris Jones for our boy here, and we'll go over some of the Chiefs stuff as well. It's good when you can end up getting your best players, to come back. It's really important. I can't even imagine Chris Jones playing on another team, period. Mike Evans, can't imagine him on another team. So I'm really happy it worked out for you. And it really doesn't matter how much you pay him, even if some people think, oh, maybe we overpaid. No, when you get a guy like Chris Jones or Aaron Donald, and even if they're getting to the end of their careers, you take care of them because they helped you get to this point and to be a champion, right? $20 holla. Chris Jones. Who? Chris Jones. 5 years, $160 million. Chief, thank you for sending some on the Cash App side as well. I appreciate that. Chief is putting in some work. Thank you. $20 holla. $2 holla. Thank you, man. You're like Mr. Williams right now. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks. We're a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. $2 holla. Appreciate you. Let me know what you want to have me pull up. We'll start off with the Chris Jones with the 20 and the 2, and then also a $5. Thank you. $5 holla. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks. A little Cactus Jack. Big bang, baby. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you. Let me go back to the comments here real quick. Yes, much appreciated. Yeah, so obviously that means that the Tampa Bay Bucks got something lined up where they have someone that they have their eyes on to be able to make this move. So I'm very, very interested to see, where we go. I'm not sure if that means Iowa's Cooper DeJean. I don't know if Cooper is going to end up being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, but I'm definitely going to be looking at secondary in the draft and excited to see where it goes. Yeah, I mean, this is out of all the re-signings in the last 5 to 10 years, this is one that you probably got to get probably the most excited about, if not, top 2, top 3. I know it's a lot of money, $160 million for 5 years, but he's earned it. Yeah, I know, some of the numbers in the playoffs have been a little lower, but again, he is a big regular season player, and sometimes postseason action, you get double teamed, you get triple teamed, and you're not going to be, maybe as dominant as people want. You know what I mean? Like if you have 2.5 sacks in 19 playoff games. But the big thing is, would they have been able to get to the playoffs and have the seeding that they have if they didn't have him? And the answer is no. So you have to be happy, and you want to reward a guy like this, even if it might be $20 million more than you feel comfortable giving. Yet he's earned that extra $20 million by, instead of 5 years, $120 million, 5 years, $140 million. You end up giving him the bag, and you make sure that he ends up staying for life. So I like it. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been very, very active for sure, bro. They still have money, though, so it's not over. So even though they decided to get Carlton Davis and make the pick swap and go that route, L'Jarius Sneed is still going to be something that, Detroit knows how good of a player that is, and it just depends if they can come to an agreement with the money. And if not, maybe looking in the draft. Right? No, I hear you. And Willie Gay. Yeah. Who do you want to do for photos? Let me know what you want to do. I'll throw up a couple more Chris Jones for you. And if there's any other photos that you want, let me know. The thing is, though, is that even though they're blowing everything up, the one player that you would want to hang on to on that entire roster is Courtland Sutton, because he's a touchdown machine. So if you ended up drafting Bo Nix, he gives them a true number one receiver to throw to. And you saw how good Russell Wilson was with Courtland Sutton. So if I'm Denver, you can trade away Jerry Jeudy and everyone else, but Dulcich and Sutton, you need to keep those two pieces. So we'll see if that ends up happening or not. But Dulcich is nice, and Sutton is arguably one of the best players on the team, besides the defensive players, where they had, obviously Justin Simmons no longer there, and now the best player is Patrick Surtain, PS2. PS2 on one side, Sutton on the other side. 41. Let's get to a hundo. That was, hey, sneaky. No one knows who that is. You know what I mean? And sometimes when you get a player that plays for you, that plays well, and everyone is sleeping on them, sometimes the interest isn't there from other teams, and you can not necessarily lowball a guy, but you can get a guy on a good deal because everyone else is just, they don't understand. And that's what you got with Drue Tranquill. So I feel that it was the only one that maybe got the raw deal out of it was Drue, because he didn't get more money. But still, sometimes you got to be able to earn that money, and there's going to have to be more money given to a guy like Chris Jones maybe than Tranquill stuff. Yeah. Oh, I know all the stuff you like, my brother. Yeah, and Peoples-Jones was actually a sleeper on Cleveland if you actually give him opportunities, but you don't really need him. But I felt that Josh Reynolds was a pretty good fit, with that team. And I think that he should stay. But again, it all depends. If you're going to let one of those guys go, it's Peoples-Jones. But I felt like Josh Reynolds did step up in a few of the games where you had injuries, where Williams was out with the suspension, and maybe Amon-Ra was a little bit banged up or a little injured. So it's all about chemistry and continuity. And I think Jared Goff and the Goffense, if you guys can find a way, I think Reynolds would be a good piece to keep continuing to have on that roster. And if they decide to move on from both, then they can end up figuring out maybe someone in free agency, or there's a plenty of great wide receivers in this draft that you can add on to what you currently have. Detroit is in a fantastic position moving forward. Next 5 years, it's a good chance that we see them in another NFC championship game or two, and possibly a Super Bowl. I'm looking at the, I'll put up a Drew Tranquill. I'll put up that for you because he played. We got to make sure we're putting in all the names. Just because it's not Chris Jones doesn't mean it's not important. And as you guys know, on this channel with a lot of us, it's not necessarily always going to be about the superstars. Sometimes it's about the lower name guys that step up, and they help you win a championship. Role players are very critical. But Tranquill earned his 3-year deal. You know what? 95% of people, they don't even know who he is. They might have seen him run around and whatnot, but they don't know who he is unless you're a Chief fan or if you're a diehard. So Aaron Jones is gone from the Packers. A.J. Dillon is going to be gone too. So that's why they brought in Josh Jacobs, because they already had a decision that they were moving on from both running backs. So I know a lot of Packer fans were wondering what's going on. Dillon, Jones, but both are gone. So I don't think Dillon's coming back either. So I think that there still is a chance if no one is interested and they can lowball him, maybe Dillon would come back. But there's a good chance Dillon will get money somewhere else. It just may not be the money that they want. Yeah. Exactly. Well, for your case, you're hoping it's T. Higgins, because that's going to be the guy that's going to be able to help you right out of the gates. Higgins is going to help you more than any other receiver that's on the market right now. So I got the NFL spinning logo. We all got that debuted. Your boy is a professional on the thumb. So, we might be in Hawaii. We might got some dollar bills, y'all. Right? We got the Falcons there with Kirk Cousins and Saquon. So we opened the show that way, right? And then we went with Kirk Cousins. Then we went Saquon Barkley. So Cousins to the Falcons, obviously great fit. Saquon to the Eagles isn't necessarily a fantastic fit, but obviously it's I felt that maybe the Chargers or the Texans would be a little bit better of a fit, but again, also it's money. And if you're going to get the more money and you want to stay within the division and want to play with Jalen Hurts, I get it. But how long before you have a tush push and another tush push and another RPO where Saquon's on the 1 yard line and you have him in fantasy, and then all of a sudden Jalen Hurts gets all the touchdowns? Could cause a little bit of drama, and we'll have to keep our eyes on that. And then Josh Jacobs going to the Packers because they decided to let go of Aaron Jones as well as A.J. Dillon. So I think that some people thought that Dillon was coming back, but reports are that Dillon is more than likely they're going to move on, and that's why they went Josh Jacobs, and they may look for another running back to play with Jacobs if they can't get Dillon on a cheap deal, but then that would be disrespectful to AJ. So. And then we talked about Jason Kelce retiring, and then the RPO tush push and how that might cause beef with Saquon at some point. And then talking about other guys that are on the line since Kelce retired. So with Dickerson, we talked about Aaron Jones. Then we went through T. Higgins and possibilities for him. Patrick Queen possibly joining the Seahawks and going that route. Noah Fant, going obviously to the Seahawks there, and then the upgraded photo, so fresh and so clean. Fletcher Cox retiring, going that route. Michael Pittman for Sarah, and going that route, as well as Grover. Stewart, and then you came in the room with Chris Jones, and then I got names of all the players and all the money. It's just a matter of who you guys want to talk about and where we're at, in the stream and whatnot. So, and I didn't get a chance to do a stream yesterday because I was watching NASCAR with Paisley, and obviously Russell Wilson to the Steelers, Baker Mayfield for the Bucks. And I know it's a lot of money, but again, Mike Williams wouldn't have signed unless the Baker Mayfield thing was already done, because he wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be a Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix situation. If you're going to come back to Tampa, you want to go with the quarterback that gave you your best stat line, arguably one of your best in your career. He was tied for first in the NFL with 13 touchdowns. So for him to be able to retire a Buccaneer and not go to the Chiefs, or go to the Texans, you want to make sure that you're at least going to be playing. Now, am I in the running to be able to win another Super Bowl in the next 3 years? No. Will I win the division? Who knows? It could be the Saints, the Bucks, or the Falcons now with Kirk Cousins. Will we go 9-8? Probably. 10-7, probably. Right? Will we win a playoff game? Once in a while, and then other times we'll get our ass kicked. But just being able to keep the ship moving. Baker, Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield Jr., and hopefully we can get Levante David to come back. The only casualty will probably be Devin White. And that one hurts me a little bit because I got 2 sewn jerseys of him. But if we didn't have Devin White, we wouldn't have won the Super Bowl. And, and I'm not going to burn my jersey or throw it away because it just didn't work out after 4 or 5 years with Devin White. And maybe Devin White will go to your team and maybe have a rebirth in his career. I don't know, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. But let me throw up a Baker here. I haven't really thrown up anything for myself up here, but let's throw up a little Baker and we'll go there. And then I'll throw up Russell Wilson, and I'll throw up Baker, and then anything else that you got. We still need to go over Spider Burns, for obviously, Panther fans and Giant fans and whatnot. And I know that kind of hurts some of the people in here, like Finley and NC Jolly. But you already knew more than likely that some of these guys were not going to be on the team. So you just have to be happy when they were there and appreciate the times that you had when they were there, even if times were rough. At least you got some explosive plays out of those guys. Well, Tiki was like, Saquon, you're dead to me. But Tiki was always kind of a slight low-key hater, to any other running back. And you also have to remember, Tiki played his whole career on the Giants. Saquon said, I want to play on the Giants. I want to play on the Giants. I want to retire a Giant. And then he goes to the division rival. He didn't have to. He could have went to the Chargers or the Texans. He could have went anywhere else. So that's a big part of why Tiki went on Saquon that way, is because not only did you leave, but you went to the division rival. So that was a big part of that. So. And again, it shows you, Baker went to the Browns. He took them to the playoffs. Some people didn't like Baker's attitude, planting the flag at Oklahoma, but it shows you a lot of the players from Oklahoma are starting to kind of pan out. Jalen Hurts, after going from Alabama to Oklahoma, he panned out. Baker Mayfield panned out. CeeDee Lamb panned out. Lots of offensive linemen have panned out. So it's like not every player from Oklahoma is panned out. Gerald McCoy panned out. But again, it's just nice to be able to see a journeyman find the perfect team to take a chance on him. Now, do I still want Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr.? Of course, or maybe next year or the year after, Arch Manning or something like that. I don't want to have Baker Mayfield for the next 10 years, but if he ends up being my quarterback for the next 2 to 3, so be it. But we will eventually get someone better than Kyle Trask, who's the backup of Baker now, who is from the Gators. We need someone better than him. But for now, Baker is in a position to be like Kirk Cousins, right? And like, Derek Carr, you're going to be sitting 10th, 11th, 12th quarterback in the NFL. And you actually look at Baker's numbers compared to a lot of the other quarterbacks. He actually had a pretty good year, like Russell Wilson did. The difference is Russell Wilson is kind of a crazy ass, and he's not likable off the field. Baker is. If you look at any interview, and this was surprising by a lot of the Bucs fan base, the offensive linemen, they'll go eat food with him. and they'll have drinks with him. You know, and then like the coaches and the positional players and the backups and the backup quarterbacks and the defensive players, like everybody respects Baker. And I have to, you know, make sure that we give a kudos to Sean McVay and the Rams for picking him up when they did to give him a shot to shine. But Baker is one of those guys where I feel that he's a lot cooler than people realize. Like, he's a guy that's got the swagger, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. But if you don't have swagger and confidence in yourself at quarterback or wide receiver, you're not going to be good. You know, you have to make sure you have a little edge to you. You don't want to be a bitch. You don't want to be a pushover. You don't want to mope and cry and shrug your shoulders when shit doesn't go your way. You have to have a little edge to you, a little swagger. But as long as, you know, you got your teammates back and you go out of your way to block for them on an end around, and you sacrifice your body of getting hurt to get that block, what do you think the rest of the teammates are going to do? You think Rachaad White is going to go to war with Baker Mayfield? Damn right. Mike Evans, Godwin, you know, everybody. You know, everyone's going to go to war. So even though it may not be my dream franchise quarterback, which eventually I'll get in a draft in the next 10 to 15 years, for a short-term franchise quarterback, I like it. And I would have loved it much more than Russell Wilson, even though their stat line was similar. You know, I like Baker, and he's grown on me. Now, again, if Baker would have had, you know, 20 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, I'm not talking about Baker right now. I'm talking about a quarterback in the draft and, you know, going that direction. But based off his stat line and what he ended up doing, the number one reason that Antoine Winfield Jr., you know, we already knew that he was going to get the franchise tag. I told you guys that like 5 months ago. But the number one reason that I felt that Mike Evans was going to come back because of his ties with his wife and kids in Tampa is because of Baker Mayfield agreeing to take less money so Mike could come back and then he could end his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if Mike ends his career, he'll be joining another Mike, who's a legend in my book, Mike Alstott, the only two guys that I really respect that played their whole careers on offense, besides Rondé Barber, right? Derek Brooks, right? On the defensive side of the ball. And that's why I like those guys. It's like, you had Warren Sapp, went to the Raiders. John Lynch went to the Broncos. But no one can ever take away Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, Mike Alstott, and then hopefully Mike Evans, all being Bucks for life. And you guys know too, when you guys have a player that stays with you, you love them more, especially if you drafted them. Now, if you get a free agent and they stay, it's cool, but it's like when you get a guy that you draft, it's like your baby. It's like your son or your daughter or your pup. You know, it's like you feel this connection because you drafted them. They panned out. They ended up being great. And they decided to stay and stay and stay when they could have gone and took more money and played somewhere else. So it's about loyalty. And when you have honesty and loyalty and respect, it puts those guys on another level. Do I love Warren Sapp? Yeah. Besides him trying to get hookers at a Super Bowl a couple years ago and getting busted by that undercover female cop. Other than that, pretty cool dude. John Lynch, amazing dude, going from being a hard hitter, smart guy from Stanford, Buccaneer, you know, one of the top 5 safeties when he was playing, you know, obviously back with Ed Reed, and going with all the other studs, you know, Brian Dawkins, Troy Polamalu. Lynch was the top 5 with those guys. Now, he might have been number 4, number 5. Those other guys might have been better than him, but John Lynch was a fucking beast. Anyone want to go back and look at John Lynch, he hit just as hard as any of those other 3, if not harder, right? And that was a big part of us winning a Super Bowl. And then Rondé Barber, Mr. Do-It-All, there's no one else that's ever gotten 30 picks and 30 sack lunches, and a guy that was a small, skinny corner that could blitz off the line and make an impact. So certain guys like that will always be my favorite, you know, always. Derek Brooks, number 1. Mike Alstott, number 2. Rondé, and then Mike Evans, if Mike Evans ends up completing the circle. So, but Baker Mayfield, pretty fucking good, okay? 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, right? 10 picks, but he had 8 picks. Obviously, it was 26 and 8. It was his stat line. And then obviously in the postseason, what did he have? 6 touchdowns and 2 picks in the postseason. So, you know, you're not going to be able to win them all. So, let's go to another photo here. I mean, I'm not gonna ever, I'm never going to be throwing stuff in front of you guys, even though I could because it's my channel, but I'm never going to dump, Buccaneers, Oregon Ducks over and over and over on the screen. If I feel they're worth talking about, but it's never going to take over a stream. But, we would definitely want to acknowledge what Baker has come through, because ultimately I'm going to give you an example right now, and it's going to make a lot of sense for you guys, okay? And this is another reason why I fuck with Baker. Because you know who Baker Mayfield is in the NFL? He is this guy that we thought was going to be Baker Mayfield. Tell me I'm wrong. Baker Mayfield is who? Baker Mayfield's career started off with a lot of, adversity, going with the Cleveland Browns, but then he actually got them to win a playoff game for the first time, so had some success. Baker Mayfield in the NFL right now, is who we thought this was going to be. Johnny Football. Like, we thought, if he could keep a straight arrow and he was away from partying and the drinking and the drugs, that we thought that if he could stay a straight arrow and be on a certain team and have right mentors. But again, he was just more of a party kid that loved to party and like girls. It just so happened he was good at football. But if he ever committed to football and he had the right mentors around him, instead of partying with Drake and signing autographs illegally to try to get his money that he deserved, for A&M, and instead of just partying himself out of the NFL, Baker Mayfield ended up turning in to the quarterback that, was successful at Oklahoma, but then had some adversity, but loves the game, great person, He didn't have the demons as much as Johnny Football, but Johnny Football's career could have been something like a Baker Mayfield, where it might have took the second or third team to find the right fit, And could you imagine if Johnny were able to make it from Cleveland like Baker Mayfield did, then the Rams just for a tryout, and then Johnny Football, throwing passes to Mike Evans like they did in college. Could you imagine? And it could have been something really, really special, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. Still love me some Johnny Football, and I hope that he gets his mentals on the right place. And I will always fuck with Johnny Football. I will always fuck with Michael Vick. There's only going to be a few guys in college. Now, the shit that he did off the field, normally I don't like that. You know what I mean? But again, all of us are human, and we have to realize not every single person is going to be committed to being a great NFL player. Some guys are just really good athletes, and it just so happens they play football and they're not really fully committed. They're just a good athlete. So we have to take that in consideration for all the Johnny haters that are out there. But Johnny Football is exactly what we thought Baker Mayfield, could be, would be, should be. And Baker has even been better than anyone anticipated. So I don't know what that means for Baker Mayfield in the future, but at least he got paid and he deserves it. And I enjoy, having him on the roster. But going into the season, was I nervous? Was I worried? You bet your ass I was. And I ended ultimately losing the fantasy championship because of Baker and Mike Evans. I played both of those players. They played against the Panthers at the last game of the year, and they ended up getting 9 points total. No touchdowns. Baker was hurt, and I ended up losing the fantasy championship. But do I have any hard feelings against Baker and Mike Evans? No, I don't. You just gotta give reflect, all the kudos there. I easily could have won, but again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. 3 years, $115 million for Baker Mayfield, and then 2 years, $52 million for Mike Evans. And if this deal wasn't secretly already done, then this guy ends up being a Kansas City Chief, a Houston Texan, or he goes somewhere else. But also not having a sales tax was a big reason why. More money gets to be kept if he stays in Tampa rather than going to a place like Texas or one of your other favorite teams. Big facts. So am I going to end up winning the division the next 3 years? I'll be in the running for it. I would say that we are the top dog right now, but as far as contender or pretender, we are a pretender. We can win 9, 10, 11 games and we may or may not win that first playoff game, but we're nowhere near being a championship contender. But at least we're a team that is considered, the best team in the division, with the Saints and the Falcons. We'll see what they do, and we'll see where it goes. That's the end of the Buccaneers information that I got for you. Any other photos or anything that you want? Chief, are you still in the building? Let me know. Gabe Davis is to the Jags is interesting, and the reason that they did that is because why? Because someone that they had as a rental didn't work out with Calvin Ridley. So it kind of just, you're flip-flopping one guy to another, right? Is Ridley better than Gabe Davis? Yes, but depending on if Trevor Lawrence can get Gabe Davis the ball, he can be just as influential like Christian Kirk. So we'll see how that goes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I was about to say, between you and Finley, you guys better hope Jeremy Chin comes back, because you don't want to lose Spider Burns and Jeremy Chin. You guys are already pretty thin. Judah in the building. What's good? All right, so we got what? Kirk Cousins, Chris Jones, Josh Allen on the Jags, Madubuke, L'Jarius Sneed still waiting after that franchise tag, Jalen Johnson, 4 years, $76 million. Spider Burns going from the Giants, or going from the Panthers to the Giants. And I know this is going to sting for the two guys that are in here for the Panthers, but we might as well go over him just briefly. Doesn't surprise me one bit. Got a lot of money, 30 years, 30-year, $30 million per year deal, which is insane. But remember, just a couple days ago, that's what we thought we were going to be getting out of him. It was going to be a very, very high number, 28 to 30 million, and he got the 30 million. He's got a good agent. But the problem is that Panther fans wanted it to be them, not him going to another team. Yeah, whatever you want. If there's anybody else that you want, like a player that you're looking at for the Chiefs, a college player in the draft that you're thinking about picking up or anything like that, you let me know. And obviously we got a couple different photos, him in the old 53 and then the one with 0. I think I like him better in the 53, but 0 kind of pops too. Spider Burns, edge rusher, traded to the Giants, 5 years, $150 million, $30 million per year. And then if you look on that line, what they have on that line is pretty insane. They got 3 studs on the front. Thibodeau, Burns, and another. Keep an eye out on the Giants' defensive line. And I got to hit you with one with him in the 0. Spider Burns. Blazer game was really fun. Like I said, when I go to games in person, I love them, especially because I hang out with my buddy Justin, who's like my best friend. So, anytime we go, we have a good time. Like normally I don't drink and do all that, but if I do drink or if I go, do that, it's pretty much only with him. I don't really do that with anybody else. So we first started off and we took an Uber Lyft, from his house to my house downtown. And we had a foreign driver that ran through a couple stop signs in my neighborhood. And I looked over at my buddy Justin. I said, "Stop sign." And I looked at him. And then the foreign guy just ran right through it. So luckily there was no cars or kids nearby or people, but definitely made me a little nervous. And I'm not saying all foreign drivers are bad. And it doesn't matter if they're from Saudi Arabia or Asia or wherever, you know what I mean? But some of the ones in Oregon that me and him have had when we've rode together have been a little scary. So we ended up making making it to our destination. We go to our 2-story arcade, Ground Control. We play a bunch of games. Started off with the Star Wars arcade machine. We play that. It was awesome. Played a bunch of different games. Hydro Thunder. We found this Ninja Turtle games through the Nickelodeon cartoon. So it's like a newer Ninja Turtles arcade game with newer moves and better graphics. Awesome. And we ended up playing that for like an hour. We beat it. Awesome. And then had a couple beers there. Fun time. Then we went to Sizzle Pie. Had a couple pieces of pizza. He got a cheese. I got a pepperoni. I said I wanted 2 pizzas, but then I was like, nah, I only want 1. And then they gave me a free one. So I got 2. So that was good. Then we saw Shake Shack across the street, brand new location. We go in there. They got 4 flat screen TVs. King of the Hill is on one of them. UFC fights on the other. Then we end up getting a burger and fries that we split because we figured after the pizza, we might as well just go there and split a burger and fry, and then that way we don't have to really buy anything at Moda. And then we ended up getting a couple beers at Moda and like some M&Ms and at halftime, and then we were good to go. Blazers were up by 20 against the Raptors. We were in a Raptor fan section, and it was back and forth. They caught up, got it down to about 9, got it down to 3. Went to overtime, and then we pulled away, and then we ended up winning by 10. But plenty of chest bumps and high fives at the game. I didn't have any young boys or girls for me to buy a gift for, like I did last time with the beanie. But we had a pretty cool section, and the seats were good, and I had a good time. I just can't watch the games on TV, but surprisingly, the energy in Moda was really good. It was a Saturday night game, and it was almost sold out. And it was almost the most packed that I've seen it. I usually go to about 2 games a year with my buddy because he's got like a mini season pack for like 10 or 11 games out of like the 41 that are at home. And I think our record of going to games together is 11-1. We've only lost 1 game where we've gone together. So, and we exchanged gifts, and I got this really amazing Star Wars Disneyland statue where he went to Disneyland Star Wars store, and they had Darth Maul and Darth Vader. My favorite character in Star Wars is Darth Maul, and the Darth Vader one got sold out, so he had to get shipped to him later. But then he had a cousin that worked there, and then I ended up getting the Darth Maul, so I got the Darth Maul in my hand right now, which is super cool. And then in trade for a gift, because our birthdays are both at the end of April, beginning of May, and we usually go to Seattle for a trip, I gave him a Clyde Drexler McFarlane figure worth about $20 to $30, and then a couple Julio Rodriguez rookie cards. So it ended up being a fantastic day overall. And we got the win on top of that too. So it was good. Again, as much as I talk about how much I hate the NBA, which I do, but going to games in person is completely different. The experience you get when you go to a game where you're drunk or sober is normally a 10 out of 10. But on TV, it's kind of hard for me to stomach through because it's like, I like going to events where I can feel the energy and the cheering and the clapping and the interaction and the high-fiving. And when you go to events, you get it. But when you're at home, it's not the same, as you guys know. Oh, it was super blast. And we ended up beating a game. Every time we go, we beat a game. Whether that's an old Ninja Turtle game, Sunset Riders, X-Men from like 94. It all depends on our mood. And I'll look at them and we'll think, okay, no matter how hard the game is, let's try. And then, and then we'll go after it. And then we'll continue to play at least that game until we beat it. So right now, out of all the arcade visits, I think we've beaten like 8 games in the last 8 trips that we've gone to. So, and sometimes we'll beat 2 games, depending on how long we play at the arcade. Because when we go to the arcade, it usually is for 2 to 3 hours. And then we go get pizza and food for another hour. And then the basketball game ends up being like 2.5 hours. So it was awesome. Great time. All right, what else do we want to do for photos? So I got any other names of any other players that you want to go over? I mean, I got all the stats in front of me of all the moves up to this point. So if there's anyone else that you guys want to discuss, let me know. But we will probably end the stream here in 23 minutes. That'll be 9 o'clock my time, 11 in the Midwest, and then midnight if you're on the East Coast. So anything else you guys want to discuss, let me know, and I got you. But we've gone over a quick recap. Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. We went over that. And obviously 4 years, $180 million. It's a good fit. I like it, right? Awesome thumbnail that I came up with the dollar bills, y'all. I feel I'm an expert at the thumbs now. Then we went to Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles. Josh Jacobs going to the Packers. Jason Kelce retiring. And then obviously Aaron Jones getting cut. Obviously that was kind of coinciding with the Josh Jacobs news. And then talking about a little bit about T. Higgins and where he may fall. Patrick Queen, where he may fall, right? Possibly on the Seahawks or somewhere else, right? And then Noah Fant for Megan when she was in here. Fletcher Cox retiring. Michael Pittman getting his bag. Couple photos there. Grover getting his bag. Chris Jones getting his bag. Drew Tranquil getting his bag. Baker Mayfield getting the bag. Mike Evans getting the bag. Spider Burns going to the Giants. And then here we are. And then, of course, I mean, I got plenty of, Russell Wilson and all that. But we actually discussed Russell Wilson, but I didn't throw up a photo. But I'll throw up one for now. And then you guys decide where you guys want to go for these last, 23 minutes. But again, everything is open now, for the Broncos and for the Vikings to get the quarterback that they want. Bo Nix for the Broncos and Michael Penix Jr. For the Vikings. You better hope it's not J.J. McCarthy to the Vikings, because then every Viking player is not going to be a fan. Can you imagine if the Vikings get J.J. McCarthy? Everyone's going to riot. They're going to quit. But if you get Michael Penix Jr. on the Vikings, that's going to be sexy. You get Bo Nix on the Broncos, that's going to be sexy. And I think it's going to be a good fit for both of those teams. But we'll see if it ends up happening. And then that way, J.J. McCarthy can go somewhere else. They'll figure out where he'll go, right? And then we'll see Jaden Daniels if he ends up going to the Commanders. Drake May goes to the Patriots, and if Caleb Williams goes to the Giants or the Bears, and we'll figure that out too. Well, as a Bronco fan, at least you don't have to worry about this anymore. And a lot of times, like the mid-level moves, you have to keep an eye on those, because if you get a lot of mid-level players, it can help tremendously, for the roster. DeAndre Swift going from the Eagles to the Bears. I hate that, because the Bears don't have a fucking line. So we're going from Swift being awesome on the Lions, awesome on the Eagles, and then probably being dog shit on the Bears unless they can, upgrade that offensive line. But they haven't been the same since David Montgomery, and that's big facts. Okay, that might be enough for Russell Wilson for our timeline and photos for the rest of our lives. There we go. His photos look better when he was on Seattle. Where he used to be a top 3 quarterback, which is crazy to think. Like, it just was a few years back. Top three with Mahomes. And how the mighty have fallen. But he did have a good statistical year with Baker Mayfield last year, for all the haters. May have looked a little ugly in that Bronco orange, and it wasn't a good fit, but it was just a few years ago. He was top 3, like his jersey number, with the Seattle Seahawks. But again, a lot can change in a matter of a few years. Gardner Minshew to the Raiders. Ezra Cleveland staying on the Jags. Zach Moss to the Bengals. Obviously there. Noah Fant staying with the Seahawks. Hunter Henry staying with the Patriots. Drew Tranquil staying with the Chiefs. Dorrance Armstrong going from the Cowboys to Washington. John Runyon going from the Packers to the Giants. Blake Cashman from the Texans to the Vikings. Eckler from the Chargers to Washington. Well, that's a notable name. We should probably do that. I mean, it'd be kind of sad if we can't even give Eckler any love. Give Eckler a little love. Definitely is a downgrade from where you were, but Washington has a bunch of athletes year in and year out. They just have to have a good owner, a good GM, right? And they have to have a good head coach and good play callers. But if you actually go back and look, Washington has always had athletic running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And they typically have had okay offensive line, really good defensive line before they blew it up. But they need better linebackers, better secondary, better offensive line. So it's still going to be a work in progress. But Ekeler should be able to score some touchdowns for the Washington Commandos. And Ekeler is one of the more well-rounded backs in the NFL that can catch and can run. There's not a lot of players that are better than Ekeler that can do both. But can you stay healthy? That's the big question. White jersey Ekeler. And you're going to be going from one of the dopest uniform combos to just a combo. But I imagine Washington fans are happy. 2 years, $11.43 million. That's nothing for Ekeler. That's nothing. So for Ekeler, he deserves more than that. I mean, Ekeler deserves closer to like 15 to 20 million total, closer to 10 million per year, not 5 million per year, but that shows you where the running back, room is at, based off numbers. Dotson returning back to the Rams. DeAndre Swift going from the Eagles to the Bears. We can throw him up. That's another notable name. They disrespected my guy Ekeler with that money. Let me tell you. Ridiculous. And again, a lot of times these aren't their number one choices, right? It's, the teams that are interested. And sometimes you think a market is going to be a lot bigger, and then you start to realize, like the Justin Fields market, it's not that big. And Justin Fields might end up on a team like the Seahawks, being the backup if they can get a good deal for him, and he will just back up Geno and wait for Geno to get hurt. That's a possibility where the Seahawks might end up having Geno Smith, Drew Lock, and possibly Justin Fields. It's possible, right? You never know. So we'll see. DeAndre Swift, 3 years, $24 million. $8 million per year. I mean, who would you rather have, Swift or Ekeler? You tell me. And then we also have to do Tony Pollard, since we're just going over these names here, going to the Titans. That's a big downgrade for him, going on to the Cowboys to the Titans. But again, they didn't give him the ball enough. They were dumb dogs. It's like, how can you have Tony Pollard over Zeke? He's not even on the team anymore, and you're still giving him the same amount of looks as if Zeke were on the team still. So the Dallas Cowboys are a bunch of dummies. They don't understand how to utilize their players, and they're going to, even if they have Derrick Henry come in, it's not going to solve the problems. There's a lot more internal problems that they have there. And we got Jordan Brooks going from the Seahawks to the Dolphins. Geno Stone going from safety from the Ravens to the Bengals, staying in the division. John Murphy Bunting, Titans to the Cardinals. Tony Pollard there. Cowboys to the Titans, 3 years, $24 million. And they already have Tajay Spears there. And who's to say that Spears doesn't get the job over him? I mean, yeah, Pollard is the biggest name, but if you get outplayed by Spears, you might be the backup or RB2, right? McKinney going to the Packers. Josh Jacobs, we ran over that already. And those are Christian Wilkins going to the Raiders. That was a good pickup for them. Been very active in free agency. I'm loving the NFL spinning logo. So fresh and so clean. Here's the Demario Davis. Yeah, and when you have guys like that, they may not be the most popular guy, but if you're a fan of the team, you know who those guys are. That's tough. That is tough. I'm looking real quick here. $3 years, $36 million. You couldn't afford him. That's why he left. $13 million per year. You guys could probably only offer 6 to 8 per year. So when a guy is like that, that's a cap casualty. That's tough. I'll throw up a photo of him for you. I mean, I would say 99% of fans don't even know who that is. So I like to be able to educate people in the room. That way we can put a name to a face. Frankie. Tommy Townsend to the Texans, like Sarah mentioned. All right, let me delete some photos. Shout out to all the people watching on Twitter/X. Make sure you smash the like button if you haven't done it yet, or do it on your way out. We got 11 minutes to go, and we want to try to be able to get as close to 20 as possible. And if we can't get to 20, at least get to 15. It'll help. So if you haven't smashed the like button just yet, we just got to 15, so we need 5 more. So if there's anybody that's watching, 3 more. If there's any other people watching on Twitter/X, you'd have to come to the YouTube side to like the stream. Hopefully they'll implement donos, conversations, as well as likes, and they can integrate that on here, but they haven't been able to do it just yet. But if you haven't smashed the like button just yet, please do. I'll be forever grateful. Yo boy. Oh, doggy dog. But it's going to be cool. It seems like we're going to have higher numbers on all the streams moving forward. It should be 20 or more people in every stream that we do for the most part. And some we're going to hit 50, we're going to hit 100, and some we're going to hit 200 or 300, depending on what kind of viewership we have on multiple platforms with Twitter, X, and YouTube, depending on what that is. So I assume at some point we're going to get a baseball stream with like the Mariners or Dodgers, where we'll have 100, 200 people in the room, or something else, or maybe the NFL draft or something like that. So there's a nice photo there. $19 tackles for loss in 2022 for Frankie. I like to be able to know things about people that most people are just like, I don't, they might just overlook it and whatnot. Exactly. Sometimes you're going to have to overpay. And the thing is like O-line and D-line are going to be so important for the development of the Carolina Panthers. So, and we have to see if they have a proven track record, if they can actually draft correctly or not too. So. Yeah. For fantasy football purposes. But the thing is also, too, if you're Justin Herbert and you bring in Harbaugh and you actually have an arm and you can actually throw the football. You don't want to just become one-dimensional and run the football because it's just going to get your running backs hurt. You want to make sure that bringing Harbaugh in, no matter who the running back is, when it's not Eckler, if it ends up being Aaron Jones or whoever, or Derrick Henry, yeah, you're going to pound the rock, but you're going to have a balanced offense to be able to take the Chargers from being last place, third place, second place, and being a wild card team. You're going to want to have, Herbert utilize his arm as well as his legs and give the running back plenty of opportunities to be able to pound the rock as well. You don't want it to be one-sided, because anytime it ends up being one-sided, remember, you don't got any defense on the other side. Now, you got names, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., but they all get hurt all the time, besides Asante Samuel Jr. So remember, the curse of the injuries is not going to be stopped by Harbaugh. Harbaugh can give leadership. Harbaugh can give a discipline, right? But still, it's going to take a lot of effort to turn that fucking ship around. It's not going to just be like immediately, Herbert is going to be a top 3 quarterback. Now, Herbert has the potential to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL at one point before he retires, but they're not there yet. The offensive line needs to be better. The defense needs to be better. The OC needs to be better. I think the head coach is good now, but there's a lot to work with. Keenan Allen ain't getting any younger. Mike Williams always gets hurt. All the players get hurt. So, we'll see how it goes. But Herbert's got talent, to be considered number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 quarterback, But again, most of the time, Herbert ends up being 6, 7, 8, 9. That's normally his rank. There's guys that are a little bit better, that have better years, but it's not like Herbert is a scrub. I mean, he's no lower than 10th every year. He's always going to be somewhere between, statistically speaking, and if he can stay healthy, typically 5th through 10th. That's where Herbert's typically going to be. But if he wants to get up to 4th or 3rd or 2nd in a season, he's going to have to get a lot of help from Harbaugh. But that's the coach that I would want to take him to the next level. I'm a Duck guy, but I would never draft Herbert. I had Herbert 1 year and he got hurt, so I'm very selective on the players that I get. All right, we got 5 minutes to go. Any other names that you guys want to go over based off the deals or anything? You guys let me know based on everything that we've done. This is the time, unless we want to go over food here for the last 5 minutes or whatever you guys want. You let me know. And make sure you take care of your mental health. I didn't get the chance to go over that earlier. Mental health is very, very important. You have a battle with yourself every single day. Make sure you're checking off the boxes to get the W at the end of the day. Be like Chip Kelly, be like Matt, be like Orion, and win the day. My thumbnail turned out good. I didn't want to, piggyback off someone else's. I wanted to make sure. Originally, I was going to do money, where I had a bunch of $100 bills, and then I was going to throw the players behind that. But then I was like, it doesn't look good. I was like, I have to be able to find something else and then add the money. And that's what I ended up doing. I was like, I need something bright and colorful, like Hawaii, right? And then I can do the money in the corners, right? If I can find the PNG, like, the transparent background, and then I'll just make the logos big. And then I just got to find some dope, photos of the guys, and then I can format them, obviously, in a PNG, and it turned out pretty damn good. What are you guys thinking? Oh, yeah. Well, Pitts is actually draftable now. Before it wasn't, but yeah, Bajan and Drake London and Pitts are now all going to be drafted because they're going to have bigger stats now. Cordarrelle Patterson, if he's still on the team. Algier. I mean, everyone's stats are going to go up, but you would think London, Pitts, and Bajan are really going to step up and move up. So I can teach you how to do fantasy. It's not easy, though. But if you pay attention to this channel, you'll understand. All you got to do is just pay attention. Pay attention to all the words that are being sang, even if it's not something that you truly care about. Like if you don't really care about basketball, Matt, or hockey, or all these other baseball things that we're talking about, but you just pay attention and you remember, you ultimately will become smarter if you remember that information, compared to a lot of the other people that are coming in and coming out of the room. It's just about keeping that information stored up here. Big facts. Yeah, I like the signing. And think about it. What would you rather have? Justin Fields, right, who's unproven. Yeah, he's younger, but he's not going to put up the same kind of stats as a healthy Kirk Cousins. Healthy Kirk Cousins is going to beat the brakes after Justin Fields. Justin Fields' stat line isn't really that great. You know, and that end up that draft, right? You have Trevor Lawrence is the only one that panned out, and all the others didn't. Justin Fields' stat line, 1,870 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 picks. Is not good? A rating of 73.2. Next year, 2,242 yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks. A little bit better. You showed a little bit of growth, right? From 7 touchdowns, 10 picks, 17 and 11. But that's still nowhere near being considered good. That's like mid. Like you're 16th best quarterback in the NFL. And luckily you got 6 touchdowns more than picks. But your yards are nowhere close to 4,000. You only have 2,000. Okay? Last year, 2,562 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 picks. It's good, but it's not great and it's not elite. It's not top 5. It's not top 10. And a lot of it is the GM, the head coach, the OC and the DC. So at least the last 2 years have been 17 and 11 and 16 and 9. But even Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield at like 28 and 6, a lot of people talk shit about those two guys. That's a hell of a lot better than Justin Fields, right? And those guys throw for 4,000 yards. You're only getting about 2,000, 2,500 from this guy. So remember, Justin Fields has got potential to be a guy like Baker and Russ, where at one point he might be a guy that has 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, but we just haven't seen it yet. And he's going to need a true number one besides DJ Moore. If he goes to another team, you're going to need one of the top 5 or top 10 receivers that help elevate him. And if he doesn't have that, you're not going to be that good. Yeah, DJ Moore, who was considered a top 10 receiver a couple of years back, but is no longer considered top 10. Does he have the ability to get 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game, DJ Moore? Yes, he even did it with him, but you can't count on DJ Moore every game. That's the difference, So Justin Fields is a project quarterback, and he's the second best one. Mac Jones, garbage. We don't think he's going to pan out. He's just average, right? Trey Lance, if he gets the right opportunity, maybe he can have a rebirth in his career. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Probably not, but we won't count him out just yet. He hasn't played. How can you say he's a bust when he hasn't got to play yet? So Trey Lance, I'm still open to the idea of maybe you go to a team like the Niners, cheap down the road, and maybe something can happen, or another team that actually has a good O-line and a good coaching staff, right? But we already know Mac Jones not good, Zach Wilson not good. These guys are backup quarterbacks, and that's what they are. Trey Lance, we have to wait and see. Justin Fields, top 16 quarterback, but you're kind of sitting at like 16th, 15, 16. There's quite a few that are better than you, like Baker and Carr. Cousins, they're better than you. Lawrence, better than you, right? But you're kind of in that same category, right? And then you got Trevor Lawrence, who isn't top 5, but who's, sitting at like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, where sometimes Trevor Lawrence is going to look like he's the 10th best quarterback, but then other games he's going to look like he's a bottom 10 or he's like 20th ranked. So you got to have a little bit more consistency, but I think Trevor Lawrence gives you more top 10, top 15 quarterback vibes than being bottom 10 where he has a bad game or two. Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in that draft class, hands down. And then when we have this draft class, Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. You got 6. Out of all those guys, you might only get one that's good. And we have to be able to come to that realization that you only might get one guy or 2 guys that are good, 2 guys that are going to bust, and then 2 guys that are going to have to wait until they get to their second or third team, and hopefully they are still in the NFL by that time to get another chance to find the right fit. A lot of these guys that get drafted, it's not going to work out right away. Bad coach, bad supporting cast, or whatever it may be. So. Mac Jones, you want me to read it to you? All right, 2021, 3,801 yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 picks. That was actually a good year. Almost 4,000 yards, 92.5 rating, and then coming out of Alabama, pretty good. but then everything went downhill when you went from Zappy and him back and forth, starting to lose the confidence. 2,997 yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 picks. So you still have more touchdowns than picks, but you're going, in the wrong direction. You're not getting better, you're getting worse. And the team around you is getting worse. And then last year, 2,120 yards. So you're going from 4,000 yards, 3,000 yards, 2,000 yards. Ouch. Rating 92, 84, 77. Ouch. Touchdowns 22 to 14 to 10. Ouch. And then picks, they're still about the same. 10 touchdowns, 12 picks. So Mac Jones' career as being a starter is over. It's done. You have that time period, it's over. Out of all those guys, Trey Lance will maybe get an opportunity, maybe, to show what he can do for one season, and then his career is over. He'll be a backup or never in the league again, right? Or he may never get a chance. He might just be stuck in mediocrity by being a second or third string quarterback for the rest of his career. We'll have to wait and see. But I think Bo Nix to the Broncos and Michael Penix Jr., that's the best fits, and those guys might end up being the best out of all the quarterbacks. The only one that I don't like is J.J. McCarthy. I don't like him. You know what I mean? I don't care what team he goes to. Not a fan. I like Blake Corum. I like the defense, but I wouldn't want J.J. McCarthy even to be my backup. So that should tell you something, okay? Will he be able to get a chance and prove himself? Will he be better than people think? He could, but I could tell you from watching tape, he doesn't have enough throws, to have you evaluate. Michigan is a defense run-first team. He didn't show you enough that say, yep, that's my guy. J.J. McCarthy is the next Tom Brady. I mean, there's nothing there to say that, So, but Jaden Daniels, I like him. He's got very good versatility, but it has to be the right team, and he might struggle early. Drake May, you were good a couple years ago. Last year, you didn't have Josh Downs, and you were shitty in college. You were in North Carolina, right? But you look shitty. You had a bunch of games where you had 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. And if I'm drafting a guy like that, top 3 pick, and most of his games were 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 touchdown, that's alarming, right? Caleb Williams, number 1 pick, the next Patrick Mahomes 2.0. But when you're really, really good against bad teams and really, really bad against good teams, and you have a QBR of a high 90 and or close to 100, and you got 50 touchdowns and 5 picks against shitty teams, and then you end up playing good teams, and then the QBR or the rating goes from 90 to 70, and the completion percentage goes from 90 to 70, the completion percentage goes drastically down, from completion percentage from 70% to 50%, QBR from 90 to 70. So you're going 20 points lower in each category. And then you end up having a stat line of 8 touchdowns and 8 picks when you play good teams. That's alarming. How are you going to go 50 touchdowns, 5 picks against shitty teams, and then 8 touchdowns, 8 picks against good teams? I wouldn't want to draft someone like that with my first pick. And if I were, you better have a great offensive line, a great head coach, a great OC, and a great defense already. So, there's a lot of question marks. So, again, you're not supposed to have all these question marks for a lot of the quarterbacks. And there's question marks for literally all of them, right? Besides Michael Penix Jr. and his health. And there's really nothing for Bo Nix. It's just about getting the right mentor, and he can succeed. So that's why I feel that Penix Jr. on Minnesota, which I called a year ago, and Bo Nix to Denver, now it's starting to look like it could happen. And if Michael Penix Jr. Doesn't happen, would Justin Fields going to Minnesota in the division be the answer? And the answer is no. It's you're going to get a quarterback that, can do some good things, but I would rather go Michael Penix Jr. than Justin Fields. And then you have to pay less money too. You have to be smart. They have to build the O-line. Minnesota Vikings O-line is trash. Chicago Bears O-line is trash. How good did Justin Fields do the last couple years? So, something to think about. Reflect in the building, what's good. But the thing is that even though that he couldn't handle the pressure in college, depending on the O-line and the team that he has around him, he might be able to develop. The big question is might. You know what I mean? But Caleb, you got question marks. When it was Andrew Luck, I didn't have any. No one did. You felt secure. But I don't think anyone really feels secure 100% with Caleb, even if you're a USC fan. You have doubts, on if he's going to pan out or not. You know, same thing with Drake May. You were good the year before, but last year you weren't very good in college. So yeah, you can go to like Washington or New England, but that doesn't make me think you're going to be so much better than Mac Jones or Zappe. You're a name and you should pan out. But again, if you don't got good O-line and good coaching, Drake May could go to New England and fail. Drake May could go to Washington and fail. Jaden Daniels can go to New England or Washington and fail, even though he's more athletic than Drake May. You know, so Caleb is a bootleg quarterback. Jaden Daniels can be a bootleg quarterback. Drake May, pocket quarterback. JJ McCarthy, pocket quarterback. Michael Penix Jr., pocket quarterback, but if he needs to run, he can. But it's mostly pocket. And Bo Nix, same thing, pocket quarterback. But if you need him to run for a first down, he can. But they're not dumb enough to run away and get blasted by a fucking linebacker. They're going to know to stay in the pocket most of the time, move their feet. So that's why I'm thinking, with the Giants and with New England and with Washington and Chicago, fuck those places. I would rather go to Minnesota and Denver, even though Denver has been a clusterfuck of a place with Nathaniel Hackett and Russ. But if you got Sean Payton and you got Bo Nix, I feel that if Bo Nix can have Cortland Sutton and you can beef up that line, it may not pan out, but at least Duck and Bronco fans will be happy. They'll be much happier with Bo Nix failing than having some other quarterback there. Same thing with Michael Penix Jr. It might not work out for him and the Vikings right away because the offensive line stinks, but you can't tell me Michael Penix Jr. throwing a 60-yard bomb to Jay Jetta or Addison or Hawkinson and then seeing a little bit of that in the end zone isn't going to be exciting. It is going to be awesome. Tua's got Tyreek. Jetta needs Michael Penix Jr. So we'll see if that ends up happening. $5 holla from my boy Reflect. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks. Cactus Jack. Reflect sends me statistics of batting for the Mariners, and I love it. Bang bang. What's good, bro? How are you? We missed you. 46 doll hairs. Let's get to a hundo. Can we get 4 more to get to 50 before I end the stream? Hopefully we can do that. At least that way getting half is better than not getting half. So hopefully we can get that. Really loving this thumbnail. I feel my thumbnail game is like really getting on point. And then I'm thinking too, in the future, I might line up my thumbnails, depending on how I feel, depending on what we're doing, but bright colors attract, and then if I can put something in there, money or whatever, certain things depending on what we're talking about. And then maybe doing logos like this, instead of having the logo and the verses, which I can still put the verses in the middle, but having a big logo for the team and then a player in front of the logo. I really like the way that this turned out. And this was just me, just trying to give you guys something fresh, something new, and something swaggy. I'm always going to work hard for you guys, and I'm always going to give you guys something aesthetically pleasing. And this one turned out great. I saw that. Beachy thumb. Originally, I had all money in the background and then the logos of the players. And then I just, it was too money, so I was like, I need something bright. And then the logos, then the players. And then maybe if I can find like falling money, but then all the falling money ones look like shit. So I was like, what if I can find like money stretched out in different directions, like a bunch of hundos? And then that's exactly what I found. So a fan of money on the left and the right. And then this Kirk Cousins one is dope because it actually has the football. And I perfectly was able to set it up. So hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure you're taking care of your mental health. I was going to end the stream a couple of minutes ago, but Reflect just came in. Anything that you want to see photo-wise? And we went over a lot. Obviously, we went through Kirk Cousins, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones getting released, and A.J. Dillon is probably going to be gone too, it looks like. Josh Jacobs going to the Packers. That's a big deal, even though Packer fans are salty and they don't want him. Jason Kelce retiring. Jalen Hurts when he gets all the tush pushes, and then Saquon Barkley gets angry. It's a matter of time before that happens. T. Higgins, where will he end up? We will find out. Panther fans want him. Chief fans want him. Bengals fans want him. Everyone wants him. Patrick Queen, possibly going to the Seattle Seahawks. I hope that ends up, happening for you guys. That would be a big pickup. And then I did a little Noah Fant for Megan when she was here earlier. Fletcher Cox retiring. Great career for Fletcher. Michael Pittman Jr. getting the bag. So Sarah's happy. Brand new photo that I've never exposed before. Little turtleneck there. Michael Pittman Jr. Stud. And Grover, getting some money. I see you. Got that one up for Grover Stewart. 3 years, $39 million for Sarah. She's happy about that. Chris Jones. Who? Chris Jones. Got that up there for Chief and some of the Chief fans. Drew Tranquil. And obviously I didn't stream yesterday because I was going over NASCAR because I feel like I'm the only one that loves NASCAR on the channel as much as I do. So I watched the full race. I watch every single race from beginning to end with Paisley, and I love it. I almost love it as much as I love hockey and baseball, sometimes more. I like having an event on Sunday that makes up for football not being there. And I love the announcers, and that's what makes me love NASCAR. Baker got his bag. Evans got his bag. Eckler, ends up going to a new team. Goes to the Commandos. 2 years, $11.43 million, which is disrespectful, but that's how the running back market is. And then obviously the Panthers, Lupu, one of his favorites, end up going to a different team as well. So those are a majority of the photos and options that we went over. And then we're back into the NFL studio, which I haven't been here. We used to use this back in the day, and I like it. So I figured instead of being in a stadium or being on the beach, this would be a good place to go. So yeah, I like Dotson a lot, and I think some people don't realize how good he is. But again, with you understand when Seattle drafts good and doesn't draft good. See, you don't hang on to just because someone brings in a player to Seattle for the Seahawks or the Mariners, and you bring them in either as a free agent or you draft them, right? You can initially like them, but just because they're on the team, you're not in love with them. Like, just because you're on the Seahawks or the Mariners doesn't mean that you have this blind loyalty. If the player sucks ass, get rid of them. What kind of fucking loyalty do you got to a team that a player that sucks ass? If a position needs to be upgraded, move on. I mean, the loyalty only goes so far. You know what I mean? Like I try to tell Megan too. It's like you have Noah Fant, you have Dissly, and Dissly can be like one of your favorite guys. But if a guy's got 1 to 3 touchdowns in 3 years, you got to move on. If you keep overpaying a guy like Dissly, the team is going to suck. And then the Rams and the Niners are going to continuously be better than you. And then I know she came in, and I know a lot of the 12s, they didn't like the Leonard Williams money. And I get it. 3 years, $64 million. Maybe it should have been closer to $45 or $50 million. But because the cap went up, these guys are going to get more money and they're going to get overpaid. So just because we think in our heads a guy is worth 3 years, $40 million, $50 million, and then the guy got 15 more, what the hell? But again, if they got money to blow, they're going to blow it. And sometimes you're going to reward the player. Sometimes you're just going to give the guy the extra money. But also, sometimes you have to overpay because that's what the market is. If some other dickweed on another team that sucks, that's worse than Leonard Williams, fucking Joe Smith, and Joe Smith is getting 3 years, $70 million, and he's nowhere near being as good as Leonard Williams, and he can use that as leverage. Look at fucking Joe Blow over here. How has Joe Blow got 5 less sacks than me, and he's got more money than me? So sometimes you get shitty players that get overpaid and good players that get underpaid. So sometimes you have to understand that the NFL is a business, and just because you like someone, if you fucked up in the draft, you have to come to terms. Other players were there that were better. But again, for some people and some of the 12s, there's no teaching them. Their minds are set. Whatever they think, whatever they spew into that room, whatever topics are coming up, they're set in their opinion and they're not moving from it. See, and that's dangerous. You want to make sure you can make your own opinion based off the games that you watch instead of just being like, oh, these guys are on our team, yay. But then if you fucked up on the draft and then you pick one guy and then you find out that you could have picked with the same pick another guy and then the other guy's a Hall of Famer, you fucked up. But a lot of people are not willing to admit that they fucked up in the draft because they have so much loyalty towards the player that they drafted, or they like that guy, or they predicted that draft pick. But besides being right and I predicted this draft pick. Who cares? If the player ends up sucking and you're wasting money, you got to improve. You have to get better. This is a business. We can all have favorites on who we like, but ultimately, if you can't be non-biased, the team is going to suffer. You know what I mean? And that's how it goes. But on the bright side, even though the Leonard Williams money was maybe too much, the cap went up, and I was trying to explain that to her and a few other people. So if the cap stayed the same or went lower, and then you paid that kind of money, then then you have valid reasoning of being angry. But if the cap keeps going up and up and up, I mean, why are we getting angry here? Yeah, I mean, no one can understand what it takes to make $1 million in a year, let alone 50 million. It's like fantasy monopoly money in our heads, and then we're comparing it to other guys, or it just looks too much on paper. But again, the fault is going to be based off the other teams giving the other shittier players too much money. And so when you end up having a guy that maybe you could have got on the cheap, since Joe Blow got overpaid, you have to look at the rest of the D tackles in the market, and then that usually determines what you're going to get paid. Not how your skill set is, but how much money other guys are making that are playing the same position as you. It's not fair, but that's just the way that the NFL works. So, yeah, it's a big, big one. And again, you're like me. It's like we may not like, the Rangers or the Astros, and some of those people, or you might not like, the Rams, the Niners, but we can still understand and respect greatness, and understand that, who's great and who's not, regardless of what jersey they're wearing, right? So it is what it is. But again, some people are set in their ways, and there's nothing that you can say to, reverse their opinion. But again, that's the problem when you end up going into a room where you have a bunch of people that don't know fucking anything, or one person copies someone on ESPN. They say, oh, this is shitty. And then you got 50 people piggybacking off that opinion and not reading or watching film or looking at the stats. And that's a dangerous thing to have, 50 or 100 people in the room arguing over nothing. That's why I don't do those type of rooms, because a lot of times you're going to have a bunch of dumbasses in there, and I'm not going to waste my time trying to, it's like talking to a 5-year-old. It's just going to go in one ear out the other. And again, now if everyone is on the same page, everyone is watching film, everyone is reading, everyone is watching the full games, everyone knows the full roster, and we're all on the same page, and then we have differences, fine. But that's not the case. Everyone is on a different level of fandom. So, and that's one thing I can respect about you, is that even if it's not Mariner or Seahawk related and it's a divisional rival, we can still say, you know what? I like that guy. Fuck it. It's the Astros, fuck them. But you know what? Jeremy Pena, I like him. He would be a good Mariner. Like, a lot of, fans can't say that. You know what I mean? But I feel that you and me can. So I feel that's why we can understand each other on that level. So. Yeah. Right. But again, when you see 3 years, 65 million, everyone starts freaking out. But again, if the cap stayed the same as last year or went lower, then you have to look on, okay, how many players do we need to sign? You don't have enough money. And then if you overpay with a shitty player, then you get upset. But I feel like a lot of these NFL fans, they don't understand how NFL works. They don't understand the business side of it. All they do is read one article, they piggyback off one opinion, and then you got 50 angry people that don't even really understand football fully, and then everyone's just arguing and punching each other in the head for no reason. It's like a bunch of, and I'm not saying everyone's going to be a dummy over there. There's going to be some smart people that know football. But again, if you go into a room with 100 Hawk fans, I guarantee not all 100 are going to be smart. That's big facts. Yeah, and guaranteed money as well. And I was trying to tell her as well, $1 holla, just because you signed for 3 years, $65 million, doesn't mean he's going to be on the team in 3 years. If he ends up sucking in a year or two, they may cut him. So just because the money is stating on paper and you look at it and then people complain about it, you have to look at the market, the other players, and go. I mean, there's many, many factors that you have to go in and look. But again, most people are not willing. They only look at what's in front of them, and then they make a judgment, and they start rifling, they start mouthing off, and then you wonder why people get in arguments all the time, because you get one side that knows everything, and then the other side that thinks they know everything and they don't know shit. That's just how it goes. But at least we have people here, that will take the time, but not everyone is going to be on the same level. So, but again, you have to be very careful with the money. But again, sometimes it's the other guys that play in the same position that are getting overpaid, and then you have to match, or get a little bit higher than that Joe Blow player. So that way that Leonard Williams feels good at the end of the day. instead of having some other random Mike Adams guy getting more money than him, and he doesn't deserve it. So $1 holla. Stacks on stacks, racks on racks. Cactus Jack, bang bang. Well, I was going to end the stream a while ago. We're going to end the stream in about 8 minutes. That way I can get some photos up here for you at the end. Reflect with a 3-er. It is, but if you're a super fan and you're a fanatic, which what this channel is, we're not fair weather, we're not average here. You know, there's plenty of channels for fair weather fans and people that watch a couple games a year. But when we're, eat, breathe, live everything football, sometimes, you're going to get people in here that follow coaching, strategy, free agency. How many NFL fans actually know GMs and head coaches and OCs and DCs? Only a fraction. So the more that you know, the more you're going to understand. But if you're going to copy what other people say and hop onto their bandwagon of opinion, you're going to come across as an idiot unless you end up doing your research, because you're actually bandwagoning an opinion off a person that may be a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Not every person, is going to understand, all the logistics on football and how it works. It's not a bunch of meatheads just fucking, clanging helmets back and forth, right? 50 doll hairs. Let's get to a hundo. Exactly. Yeah, but that's why I feel not being biased is really important. And a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, are incredibly fucking biased. And they think they're not until you get into a room with a lot of other people that see football a certain way. And you can tell, who is not willing to budge. And it's fine if you have bias for your favorite team or your favorite player, but you can always recognize greatness on other teams, because you never know, that guy that you're trashing might end up being your teammate or a guy that you have to root for. Think about all those Eagle fans that were like, fuck Saquon, fuck that bitch, fuck Barkley, he's an idiot, I fucking hate that guy. And now Saquon Barkley, years later, is a starting running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. You have to be very careful, on the words that you say, because you never know when that guy that you talk shit about and how much you hate that guy is because it's a divisional rival and you're not willing to accept his greatness even on a different team. And then coincidentally, fast forward a few years later, boom, guy on your team. And what are you going to do? You're still going to be that guy on the Eagles? Fuck Saquon? Hell no. You're going to be the guy, I've rooted for Saquon my whole life. Motherfucker, first guy in line on NFL Shop with a Saquon jersey is the same guy that was bashing him 4 months ago. So, big facts. All right, where do we want to go for photos? Matt gets one photo, so I'm gonna get one photo of my liking, but it'll probably be a throwback. I feel like back in the day, she almost kind of had like a supermodel look. To me, it all depends on, hair and lipstick and whatnot. But I feel like this, if she actually stayed like this, and I get it, the red lipstick, short hair is her signature. I get it. She evolves as an artist in the way she looks, but she looks a lot prettier and cuter to me with more of a natural lipstick and longer curly hair. She looks hot there. Not that she doesn't look hot now or cute, but I'm just saying I think she looks much better. The OG Taylor is, you got to pick up your jaw, Matt. I know you're just drooling all over the Hawaiian Islands right now, but I haven't forgot about you. I got you. I'm going to make sure I get you the good photos where she actually had a vibe back then. Yeah. And plus, a lot of us, I feel, just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you understand football. Like, you can be watching football for 30, 40 years and still not understand it. You know, you might understand some things like, oh, the center hikes through the quarterback and it goes to the running back or wide receiver or tight end, and you might know some of the rules, but football goes much deeper with play calling and strategy than people understand. It's not a bunch of meatheads, clanging helmets, and then that's how it goes. Like, there's a lot of levels into baseball, basketball, football, hockey, with the strategy and everything else and how the business works. And being able to get players on rookie deals so that way you don't overpay, just like they did with Russell Wilson. Because if they would have gotten a big name quarterback, guess what? You wouldn't have won a Super Bowl, let alone gone to a couple Super Bowls, won one and lost one. But getting Russ on the rookie deal was a key instrumental part with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch and Doug Baldwin and all the guys cursed that they had. It was a perfect match at the perfect time with the perfect money allotted to get that guy that had a skill set of being a top 12 quarterback, but you're going to pay him like he's a rookie. And that's how you were able to get more players, give more money to the other guys, and create a championship atmosphere. So. Well, David Montgomery is splitting carries too, and David Montgomery was a great back. If you look, when Montgomery was with the Bears with Khalil Herbert, that was the last time that they actually could move the football. Montgomery is the best physical back, that you have, and then you get Gibbs. It's like thunder, and then you get the lightning. 20-20 on, and again, it just depends if one gets hurt or not. But Montgomery has always been a good player. But again, what was the difference? The offensive line being better in Detroit, and then also having the dynamic of Gibbs and him instead of him and Khalil Mack. But you notice, once Montgomery left, the Bears' running game disappeared. So for all the people that thought that Montgomery really wasn't that good, they were wrong. Montgomery was very, very good. It's not like one of those things like Jamal, when Jamal, was on the Lions, and then when Jamal ended up going, to the Saints, you go from 20 touchdowns to 1. It wasn't like that. Montgomery is the real deal. So. You got it, baby. Yeah. Right. Because back in the day when everybody was good, it was what? Mahomes 1, Rodgers 2, Russ 3. And then there was even some years where people were like, Russ is 2. It's a debatable. Like Mahomes is at the top, but then it's like, you still got a couple of these other guys, but it was like you were going through 3 or 4 quarterbacks, but it was pretty much the same 3 or 4 names, like early in Russ's career when they, Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. It shows you how special it is. And even the guys like Doug Baldwin and Curse, like guys that might not be the most popular, but you need those guys to win championships or get to NFC championship games. The Niners tried to battle you back then with Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis. But again, it's all about having better players and more of them. It's 11 on 11. So if you got 9 good starters on offense and 9 good on defense, and the other 2 are average compared to another team that's got 7 and 5 and 7 and 5, you're going to win. Because you have a couple more guys that are a little bit more qualified. So, yeah. Well, you got to think with Gibbs. Gibbs is not like anybody that we've ever seen. Just based off his size and his mobility and everything, and his lightning quickness. So it's going to be a bright, bright future for the Detroit Lions, and that's big facts. Well, I need to eat dinner. I need to take Paisley for another walk. I was only planning doing a 2-hour stream, and here we are 3 hours and 31 minutes in. So Paisley's missing her dad. I need to eat dinner. I need to go take another walk in the rain, and we'll probably be back tomorrow with the hockey matchup. I think the Kraken end up playing late against, let's take a quick look. Is it Vegas tomorrow? Yeah, Golden Knights and the Kraken at 7 p.m. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. And we'll go over more NFL news there as well. I appreciate and love everyone. Shout out to all the people on Twitter/X watching. Shout out to all the people that donated. I appreciate you, commented, shared. I love you. MSU, Reflect, Judah, Sarah, all of y'all, Matt. Didn't forget about you. And I got one question for you. Who you know talks sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I'm out. Gang.